Across the UK, online and on DAB.
We are Talk.
Talk Radio. Give it some lip.
Talk Radio.
Evening, dear listener. Well, you know, it's going to be a different show this evening. We're going to talk about the day's events, and if you were there, I'd love to hear from you. If you weren't there, I'd also love to hear from you, just to kind of check in and let me know how you're doing, if you get me, Lizard. You know, just give us a call and just check in and tell me how things are going for you. 0344 499 1000. Late nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Get an earful of unusual nocturnal emissions with radio's Lord of Misrule, Iain Lee. No relation, thank God.
Unfiltered Night Talk with the original king of unconventional conversation. Late night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
So, dear listener, it's going to be a very different show this evening, and we're going to talk about the day's events. Personally, you know, I kind of think that perhaps we've all heard enough today. You know, let's be honest, excuse my language, it has been a shit day, hasn't it? Hasn't it? It has been absolutely lousy, beyond lousy. And it's one of those days when you are hearing the same kind of thing over and over again, and I kind of think that perhaps that a significant portion of this audience are ready for a laugh today. But, I had a conversation with my boss earlier on today, and, first of all, he said, take the night off, we'll get someone in. I went, whoa, hang on a second. No. Let's think about this. I can come in and I can do a kind of a straight show, sort of in my style. But that's what they want. They want a straight show. They want us to talk to experts, and that is what I will, of course, gladly do. They're my bosses, and I do what they say. What I don't want tonight to be is to be lots of guesswork, lots of finger pointing, lots of trying to stir up a little bit of hatred. If you go online, there are various groups that are using this incident, this horrific incident that happened today. They are using it to their own gains, to create more divisions, to create racial hatred, to create religious hatred, to stir it up. And we don't know what happened. We don't know why this person did what they did, and I'm reluctant to start guessing and hypothesizing. We'll find out. We'll find out in due course. But I don't want this to be who should we hate? What should we? I don't want that kind of thing. I do want you to call in. If you were there, I'd love to hear from you, because I'm genuinely, I'm fascinated in as to how it was, what kind of experience it was for you. Even if you weren't there, though, I'd love to hear from you, because it's weird, isn't it? It's a weird, horrible, dark energy that has been created because of this horrific incident that happened today. I'll tell you, I was in London. I'll tell you my short, trivial story. I wasn't near it, but I'll tell you what happened to me and where I was and what was going through my head as the evening progresses. And I'd like to hear from you, because we will be talking about this all night. We may go off on little tangents, but this is the focus, and we've got some guests lined up, and Kath has worked hard to get some, I think, slightly different guests lined up, and we'll just see how it goes, shall we? But can we just call for the next 2 hours and 55 minutes just for a little bit of calm? Okay, just if your finger is raised and you want to point it somewhere, just put your finger down. We don't want any of that this evening. Saying that, you are more than welcome to give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. We had a package, a 2.5 minute little piece of kind of a summary of the day, but I would be so shocked if there was even one person who was turning on the radio tonight and didn't know what had happened. So I'm not going to patronise you by playing that. I'm not going to patronise you, because you will have heard all of that stuff throughout the day. And I'm hoping that in the next 3 hours we can just kind of shape this into something a little bit different. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. If you want to give me a call, you'd be more than welcome. Let's go to the first guest. It's a gentleman called Simon Trundle, who is a counter-terrorism expert and managing director at Grendon Design Agency Limited. Evening, Simon.
Good evening. I doubt I'm an expert, because if we can find one of those, then...
Well, I was about to say, how does one become a how would you describe yourself, Simon?
I do specialise in counter-terrorism and bonus protection and saving lives, trying to save lives which would otherwise be impacted by terrorism. It doesn't make me an expert.
No, thank you.
Back 30-something years.
Thank you. Well, thank you for correcting me. How do you get into that line of work? I'm assuming you have a military background. Would that be correct?
Partly, yes, but actually how I got into the work was that I was working in Northern Ireland in, believe it or not, in construction, and we built or repaired police stations after they were bombed, and the IRA decided to try and have a crack at me, and it just changed something in me. I said, well, no, they can try and assassinate me, but I'm going to keep on going, and I'm going to learn more about how to protect buildings and people.
Gosh.
And that's where I started a career. So in 80, tomorrow was Martin Guinness's funeral, and I'm sad about that, because I think, even though at one stage I'd have gladly shot him, and I hated him, I came to respect him and to forgive him and to almost welcome him as a man of peace, because he did bring the IRA to the negotiating table, and he did single-handedly played a major role in
Simon,
bringing
you
that
just
peace.
said something fascinating, and I hope you don't mind us just following this for a second, and then we'll get on to the horrific event today.
Yeah.
When Martin McGuinness died, obviously there was a lot of anger from a lot of people, but I did read and hear a few stories from people who had lost children or wives or husbands in IRA bombs, and I did hear a handful of them say they forgave Martin McGuinness. And I just heard you use that word, and I wondered how you got to that point of forgiveness.
It took a long journey. 1986, it was 86 when the IRA targeted me and a colleague to try and...
And it was a targeted attack. They wanted to take you personally out.
Yeah, I survived two, thankfully. And the first attack, sadly, a young manager of ours borrowed the car we were supposed to use for an hour, and he was shot dead with the passenger, and then they named us, but they got him. And then the second time around, Martin McGuinness's brigade, if you want to call it, he called it the South Area Brigade. They mortared my office, but I was late for the first time in 14 years for work. And I survived that. And then there was another attempt, and then sadly I found myself in situations where I was either picking up pieces of people or witnessing it. So we were in the middle of it, like a lot of people were. No member of family, but work colleagues and good friends were killed. And then I must admit, I harboured hatred.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet. Understandably
and then I came to a place, and I'm not going to start preaching to you about faith and stuff, but I did actually find something myself. And once I kind of began to think about this thing about forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. It changed me, and I took a decision to forgive, and then I had to walk through it. I had to work my way through it. So
that's incredible, and I really appreciate you sharing that, Simon. I didn't know that history of yours, and that really is absolutely remarkable. In terms of what happened today, my opinion, my kind of view on it, as someone who's just watched it on the news and heard it on the news, is the police were pretty outstanding, weren't they, today?
They were, and I almost felt guilty earlier on for thinking that we got away lightly. I mean, we didn't get away lightly. There are 3 victims dead and the perpetrators dead, and there are families mourning, and there are families grieving for those who are injured, and there are horrific injuries, and there's several people, in between life and death. So we may be seeing more, but we did it could have been so much worse.
Yeah.
The police did respond. I mean, okay, I've had so many people. We were involved in an incident in Whitehall, in controlling one of the buildings in Whitehall, so it was an interesting day. We had some difficult things happening, but I think the fact that the man is shot dead in the palace in Parliament is about as bad as he can get. He gets in there, he gets as far, but there are police there willing to put their own lives on the line, as we've seen this evening. One of them died, and two others stepped up to the mark, did the classic thing of shouting a warning against somebody who's no longer interested in a warning. But they did their duties. They shouted a warning. When he didn't stop, they responded accordingly and shot him. I know, even now, I know from speaking to one or two of them that they were saying it's a pity he died. We wanted him alive.
Yeah,
a live terrorist is much better than a dead one.
Well, of course, because they can certainly face a prison sentence, but you never know. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, this chap is dead, but when you capture people like this, they don't give much away, though, do they?
Well, there's all sorts of forensics in death, and there's all sorts of, you'd be surprised how much is going on this evening. In the vehicle, we have extensive CCTV networks in London. Some areas are very heavily concentrated, other areas are just traffic cameras and automatic number plate cameras for the congestion charge. So all of that will be looked at now. So we're going to get some forensics out of the attack and work out where the vehicle came. Was it seen on the camera with two people in it? At any time, did somebody hand over the keys to him to continue? Was he alone? So all of that's going on in the background. But it's always, believe it or not, when people are caught, some of them are. Some of them do actually help, and they give away information.
You mentioned something, and I'm going to ask you a question, which I think I think you're not going to answer because of your operational activities. You mentioned that you were involved with the buildings in Whitehall being locked down. Is that correct?
Yeah, one particular site. Yes. Yeah.
Can I ask how a building like that gets locked down, or is that top secret?
It isn't. I mean, it's straightforward, and it's actually been practiced all over the country.
Right.
With shopping centres, with government buildings. It's very simple. When you have an incident developing in the area, you should have your contingency plans. And in this building, it was all shutters came down, all entrances were closed, all doors were locked, and everybody stayed inside, and the building went dark. So it looks as if there's no life in there, because at one stage they were uncertain as to whether this was a precursor for a second attempt, because it has happened before. Whether there was more than one person. It could have been, the police were doing a magnificent job of trying to move people away, because if hundreds of people had gathered to look at it, then that could be a precursor, a target for somebody coming in with a suicide vest and killing far more people.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly keep amending your plans. So it's been practiced. There's been an awful lot of work going on. I was speaking to one of the firearms officers this evening, and he said, "Son, I'm as guilty as you. I feel as if we got away fairly lightly." But it's something we've been practicing for 2 years, 3 years now. And the plan worked insofar as how we covered the area and how we locked down the area. That's great. But we could be having a very different story if there'd been a wider team tonight.
This is the thing, and I was talking about this in the office. And again, we don't know this gentleman or why this was being done, but and I know what you mean when you say we got off lightly. Obviously, the families involved would not think that, but when you compare it to something like the attacks in Paris, or I understand exactly what you mean by that. And I was surprised that this chap appeared to only have a knife. Didn't have a gun, there was no explosive, there was no suicide vest, which you mentioned. And that struck me as really odd. I would have thought if someone was going to do an attack like that, they would go all in with as many... Is it that if I were to make a bomb or I were to make a suicide vest, that would cause a noise on the internet or the authorities might pick up on that?
Well, there's no doubt that there's been a lot more work. There's a lot of work going on in the background to track and trace explosive quantities and materials that can be used for making explosives. So if I were to order, 4 gallons of peroxide, I think, which was used in the 7/7 bombings and part of one of the components, and that would be immediately flagged up, because all the suppliers now are charged with with declaring any unusual purchases, one-off purchases for company, not for a company but for an individual. So there's a lot going on in the background, and terrorists, cells both here and abroad know that. So they try and say, well, let's keep it as quiet and as low-key as possible. Weapons, yes, there are more weapons in the country than people probably realise. The criminal fraternity can always produce a 9mm machine pistol for sale or for hire, for a robbery or for an attack on a drug gang or whatever. So we're concerned about them transferring over into the wrong hands. He could have equally have acquired a shotgun or something, a pump-action shotgun, which, relatively easy to steal in the country, go to a farmhouse, etc., etc. All those things we look at. But it means you expose yourself before the incident. Now, today, what we'll assume is he picks up a knife out of the kitchen, or he's bought one at B&Q or Homebase or whatever he wants to buy one, or Marks and Spencer's, because we can all go in and buy lovely, sharp kitchen knives. He buys one of those, nobody triggers. That's just a normal purchase. He drives a car. Now, whether he hired the car, borrowed the car, or owns the car, he has a vehicle. He has the mobility to get to the target, and then he used the vehicle as the attack. So it's a hostile vehicle. And really today, he's driving a vehicle of just under 1.2 tons in weight, and he sadly kills, 2 people on the bridge and has crushed others. We may have more fatalities, and it's horrific. But with that vehicle and in that area, he could have killed so many more people. So we're looking at the fact that not that we were lucky, because nobody involved in this was lucky today. Those who might say, well, I wasn't hit by the car and I was on the bridge and I'm lucky. Yeah, but those who were involved, no. So it's such a low technology attack that could be carried out by anyone tomorrow. And that's what IS and that's what the rest of them are actually saying to people. Don't tell us when you're going to do it. Don't put anything on the internet. Don't declare that today is the day, and don't make your video and put it up on the internet before you go and do it, because all of that's been monitored. Just do it. But leave a note or a message, or a friend will have a video who will pass it on afterwards, claiming that you're doing it in the name of whatever it is you're doing it on. So we don't know yet. I mean, but equally on situations like this, we've had situations in the past where many years ago, a car ran into the front of a BBC in White City, and people were going into panic over why on earth would a car drive into the front entrance of the BBC, and it turned out to be a mentally ill person who felt that the television was spying on them. And so it could be mental health today, it could be a combination, because recently we've also seen IS feeding people who have mental health issues. The attack in the underground with the knife, which you saw last year. That individual had gone through several. Oh well, there is a connect. You do often see a lot. There's a number. The chap that killed Joe Cox. It could be classed as a terrorist murder, and he was mentally unstable as well. So it does. They do. Simon, I was going to say I've enjoyed talking to you, and that's a terribly inappropriate phrase, but I appreciate your time this evening, Simon, and thank you very much for speaking to me. Okay.
Thank you very much. This is Simon Trundle, counter-terrorism. He's worked in counter-terrorism, managing director at Grendon Design Agency Limited. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. This is the way the show's going to go. It won't be for everyone. If you've had enough of this, we're going to do it slightly differently. But if you've had enough, then switch off. If you're finding all of this talk a little bit upsetting or disturbing, then switch off. Because what I don't want to do with the show tonight is I don't want to scare, and I don't want to worry. I don't want to be one of those shows where we're shouting and causing panic. I don't want to do that. I want to try and calm everyone down if I can. I want my role this evening to try and calm everyone down. So give us a call. 0344 499 1000. Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
Late night conversation worth losing sleep over.
Iain Lee.
On air and off the leash.
On Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Evening, dear listener. 0344 499 1000. If you're just tuning in, we're going to be following the events of the day, and to what end, I don't know. It would be very, very surprised if we got any new information this evening. But you never know. What I'm really after is your personal stories of how the day has affected you, and I'll kind of share with you how it's affected me. So I want those personal stories, and I want the facts of what happened today. I don't want any, well, I think maybe it was this guy. I think maybe he did this and he was doing it. I don't want any of that. I don't want any of the guesswork and any, I've seen the usual, I'm not even going to name him, but these right-wing kind of nut jobs on Twitter going, well, it's because we got Muslims and I don't want any of that tonight. That's not what tonight is about. Let's get some facts. We got, David Spencer from Talk Radio News. David, good evening.
How are you? All right?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Give us the facts. What do we know? Because lots of misinformation flying around. What do we know about what happened today?
I'll talk you through the facts as quickly as I can. 4 people died after this attack outside Westminster earlier. What happened was a car driving northwards from South London. For those that can picture, you see the aerial shots of the Houses of Parliament.
So driving towards Big Ben.
Driving towards Big Ben. That's
yeah.
Westminster Bridge. And a car was driving across it, up onto the curb, into some pedestrians.
Yeah.
Lots of people injured there. 2 people in that crowd died. Some of the injured were school children from France. Also, a couple of police officers on their way back from a commendation ceremony. Right. Then the car carried on, crashed into a gate outside the Palace of Westminster. Man gets out, carrying a knife, attacks a police officer, armed police who guard Westminster. That policeman sadly dies. The attacker is then shot dead. And that's how the incident played out. Since then, police have announced they think it was one attacker.
Yep.
Pretty certain.
Because there was a period quite early on where they were saying it was being reported that it was 2.
And that's what happens with these stories, because people get very confused, and because of the speed, you know about this, social media, misinformation then spreads much quicker than it might have done before. And even a name went out of a possible attacker on reputable organisations.
Channel 4. Was it Channel 4 that said it? And I know you're being discreet, but I don't need to be so discreet. Channel 4 said they had the name of the attacker, and I saw it being tweeted around. And then, am I correct that the chap they named, his solicitor said, well, he's in prison. He's serving a prison sentence.
He's still in jail.
So this is why everything you read on Twitter and on Facebook, and even things you see on the news, question everything. You've got to question everything.
And at the heart of journalism, that's why it's a modern question.
Yeah.
That's really challenging, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the speed of things means that, you are demanded to deliver more quickly.
Well, this is
the facts.
When I worked at the BBC, we would constantly get knocked. And we get messages saying, well, hang on a minute, you're reporting on something that Sky just reported 20 minutes ago. And we used to have, and I know we're linked with Sky, but we had a saying at the BBC, Sky, never wrong for long. Because what they and other news sources would do is they would get the news and put it out. And the BBC, however, it's trendy to knock the BBC, but the BBC, for the most part, would hold back and check it. Where did we get this from? Is it a reliable source? Can we get this from a second source as well to confirm it?
And that can be very frustrating from a consumer point of view. People listening will watch the BBC and go, why aren't they saying this? Why don't we know this?
Yeah.
And there's checks in place.
Yeah.
And as a journalist, you should be doing that at whatever organisation you're in. And it's interesting, for the language of an incident like this, even in my news this evening, I will not be saying a terror attack.
Right.
Police of calling it that, because that allows them to react.
That's interesting, yes.
They have described it, they're treating it as a terrorist attack because it gives them the ability to then react in the way they can.
Yeah.
We don't know it's a terror attack. This could be anyone with any sort of method.
That's
and
interesting,
the language of that is quite important, because a terror attack gives a different meaning, and almost you maybe give some credibility.
Credibility. Yes,
Thank you.
I know.
Sorry,
You've had a long day.
I have. I know.
You were telling us before we came in, telling me and Kathy, you were on the tube.
Yeah.
When nearby when it happened.
Yeah, I heard the news break. I was actually the other side of London, about to get on the Underground, and it involved a change which would be on the line that goes through Westminster.
Right.
And I thought, well, hang on a minute, the Jubilee line, which is the line that goes through Westminster, may well be closed.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I got on the train, and it said, "We will not be stopping at Westminster because of a security incident." As we go through very slowly, you can hear this announcement of get out of the tube station. There's a police incident going on. It's quite surreal. And I'm obviously, knowing as a journalist, you get an instinct for this is something not right. And also, before that, when I travel into London, one of the biggest shopping centres in London is Westfield in Shepherd's Bush.
Yep.
And I've been chatting to a New Zealand radio station this evening about, they said, how do you feel in London? Are you worried about these types of attacks?
Yeah.
Yes. When I park at Westfield, I don't go into the shopping centre. I go through the car park.
Yeah.
I stay underneath and go outside because, you say about personal experience, I know that is a target.
Yeah.
And so it changes my behaviour. Every time I get out at Westminster Tube, I think about how that is susceptible to a terror attack.
Isn't that interesting? Because I know Whiteley shopping, and it's huge, vast, it's too big. I never understand the fascination of different shops. Oh, look, Next is next to Boots, and in our shopping centre it's Gap, it's whatever. But you won't go into Whiteley's because of that. Because I'm aware, and I kind of, and I'm a dad, and I like to think I have my eyes open. What are you going to see? What are you going to do? But I have not yet reached a stage where I won't go to places.
I just know that there's no point in going into it.
Yeah.
And it's somewhere that it's a security risk because a shopping centre, and you say it's vast, are very difficult to protect.
Yeah, yeah.
And we know that there have been a number of incidents involving shopping centres.
Of course.
So, and I heard a security expert talking a few weeks ago actually about how the UK has been better at preventing attacks like this.
Yeah.
Partly because we're an island, we know that, but also because of our brilliant security services. And there's been a lot of weaknesses in France and Germany. They've admitted that. They've not been used to this type of terror threat. The UK has had it since the 70s.
Yeah, of course.
We heard talking about IRA incidents before.
Yeah.
And so we're a little bit more used to it, a little bit more educated with our terrorism, but you still worry that those sort of places are susceptible. And a terror expert was saying when he goes into a shopping centre, he immediately looks at where the exits are and how he could get through a shop.
Really?
To plan. And that is, and when you're living and working in London, I think people do worry about that and do think about that. You can't let it beat you, though. You can't let it affect you too much, can you?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, I remember when I grew up outside of London, and I came to North London when I came to college. I remember my first year at university. I mean, it's Oakwood, right at the top of the Piccadilly line. You can barely call it London. And there was an IRA bomb. So this would have been about 92 or something. And there was an IRA bomb, I think, in Ealing. Miles away. But we were all terrified. It was like, God, we've moved to London and within the first couple of months there's a bomb and this is what it's going to be like. And there were a couple more bombs after that over the months. And with each one, I got less and less scared, because I don't know why. I think statistically, and this is not to make light of any, demean any families that have been affected by today at all, but statistically, it's the chances of it happening to you are very slim. And I don't think I could live in London. Well, I don't live in London, but I don't think I could go and work and travel in London
and think about it.
No,
I think people do, and maybe they'll tell you that.
Well, we'll find out.
They change their behaviours, and I think after 7/7, I was working in London in 2005, and we know that it was the Olympic announcement the day before, very celebratory. We were covering that. The next day, the attack, and then the next day after that, I've got colleagues that were all caught up. We all travelled into the same place in the centre of London on the tube, carrying on our behaviour.
Oh, the first time on the tube after that.
You have to do it, but you've just become slightly more aware, and an incident like today, I think will change, will once again give people a reminder that you become far more aware of your surroundings.
On the day of 7/7, I lived in North London, but I was out at Slough visiting my mum, and a friend of mine who was a TV producer, and he phoned me up at lunch, about 4:00 in the afternoon, and he was filming a TV show, 8 out of 10 Cats. He said, we've had 2 guests drop out because of 7/7. They don't want to travel into London. Would you come in and be a guest at short notice? And I did. But it was filmed in the BBC and Television Centre, as it was then, which, of course, was a target. So we filmed a comedy show on the most... I can't read what you've typed on the screen, I'm afraid, because you've lost it. We're filming a comedy show on the most horrific of days, and they wouldn't allow an audience in, so it's a completely empty studio.
How surreal.
It was it really was a very odd ending to a very odd day. So those... Kathy's typing something on my screen, but I can't see it because of the way it scrolls up, I'm afraid. So I think we've got... The way this screen works is I can only see a little bit. Here we go. Oh, man, here we go. OK. Met Police say 5 people have died in today's attack in Westminster, including a police officer, the attacker, and 3 members of the public. So that's another member of the public that's died. 40 people are injured, including 3 police officers, 2 in a serious condition. Ah, man, I suspect that, well, we'll see. Anything else?
No, I mean... I think that number, from what we saw, the word that was very unusual earlier on from the medical officials when they were attending to the injured was catastrophic. It's a very unusual word to use in news parlance. We don't normally have that kind of language. So there is a worry that there may be more victims. Okay. But yeah, very sad.
David, thank you very much indeed. It's nice to see you in here despite the situation.
Lovely to be in.
0344 499 1000 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. It's going to be a heavy show, and it's is it the right thing to do? I don't know necessarily, but it's what's been required, and I'm kind of happy to deliver. I don't want to make it a terrifying show. I don't want to make it an angry show. I don't want to make it a show where we kind of point fingers and say, it was them that did it. Them, and we shouldn't trust them, because we don't know nothing. Okay? What I want from you, not should we arm the police, not should we close our borders, none of that. None of that. I just want to know how you're doing after today. Has it affected you? Maybe it hasn't affected you. That's valid. Maybe you don't live anywhere near London and it's just not touched you. Maybe you do live in London and it's not touched you. That's valid. That's really valid. But I just want to know how you're getting on. Is that all right? We can do that, can't we? Until 1 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
The radio show for people who know the best part of the day is the night.
Late Night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
0344 499 1000. Jay's on the line. Evening, Jay.
Evening, Ian. Funny old day.
It's a funny old day. How you doing?
All right, thank you. It is a funny old day. I mean, I'm up in sunny Greater Manchester, so it's not like it's happening around the corner this time. But isn't it funny how the other day you were saying we haven't had I
did.
Happen?
I did.
I'm not blaming you.
No, not at all. And I did say, I do think it's unusual that this hasn't happened before. And I do think it's unusual. I'm surprised that that there weren't firearms and explosives involved. And doesn't it ground us all and make us think?
Well, you touched on something with your interview, your really good interview with that fella, the first one, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. You touched on something that I've been speaking about with my colleagues today at work, and that's about the fact that the things that we are seeing happen are kind of low tech, people. I mean, you mentioned Lee Ribby last time, but that's 2 guys with knives, and this is a guy with a car. The kind of stuff that you don't arouse suspicion, by driving a car around or by having a kitchen knife, and it seems what leads me to believe, rightly or wrongly, I don't know, is that behind the scenes there's a lot of work going on in catching people who are kind of quote unquote organised and organising. And it'd be interesting to know whether or not, your man who the expert before was talking about.
He was good, Simon Trundle, yeah.
He was Simon. Okay, I'll cut Simon.
Yeah.
He was really interesting.
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to know his thoughts on whether it's the organisation saying, stay low key, do it like this, do it like that, or whether it's just guys who are influenced and they don't have access to, the more sophisticated, weapons and things, whether they are just doing what they can with what they have to hand, they just got it into their head that that's what they have to do. Rather than being part of any organised network, They're just influenced or lone wolves. I hate the phrase lone wolf, but you know what I mean. They're not really that connected. They're just brainwashed enough to believe they have to do something, and they do what they have to hand.
Well, we're verging towards the slight guessing game, Jay, and I kind of don't.
Yeah, I know.
No, I just because we don't know anything about this fella. I don't, and it's pointless trying to guess. And in some way,
it's interesting that. Sorry.
Go on, Jay. Go on.
It is interesting that. And I think the attacks that we will see of this nature will perhaps be more low tech than we've had in the past.
Well, we will see. Jay, thank you for that. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. This is the way the show's going to be tonight. If you're unhappy with it, just switch off. It's fine. Don't send me obnoxious messages. Just switch off. This is what we're going to do, rightly or wrongly. This is how we're going to proceed. This is how we're going to do it. Not necessarily what I would have decided upon, but, respect to my bosses. They feed my children. And I think there is something, can you turn my computer feed off? Because I've not got it plugged in. There is something, in just taking a step back from the day. Just taking a step back from the day. Because you know that a lot of the news channels and the other radio stations will be whipping everybody up into a frenzy. We'll see what he wants to say. We'll be whipping people up into a frenzy, and we're getting angry, and I don't want to do that. And I don't want to scare people into not going into town, and I don't want to do that, because this happens. This happens. Julie's on the line. Evening, Julie.
Evening, Ian.
How are you doing?
Really struggling today.
Go on, why?
So, this morning, I had a big row with my daughter. It was trying to play hooky, saying she was ill, and I was trying to physically get her out of the house, and she was delaying, so she missed the bus. And at that time, there was a woman walking down my road, and she looked a bit lost. And she asked me if I knew where such and such number was, and I said yes, it's at the end of the road. And she said, I'm trying to, and at this time I'm right in the middle of trying to get my daughter out. And anyway, so took my daughter off, and I kind of shut the door, having pointed to where the house was, and I could see her, after my daughter had gone off, I could see her walking about still. And because of the conversation that you had last, like where you were saying about the guy who cut himself and was talking to himself and how you felt, you should have done more. It kind of made me think, do you know what? It's only because I'm having a row with my daughter. Do the right thing. So I went out and I helped her, and we phoned the neighbour, and we made sure that she got into the house, and And I thought, do you know what? I'm so pleased I did that because I did the right thing. And then, so I live in South East London. My husband works in London, and obviously the events of this afternoon, and they just the pure, like the vitriol and the hate bait that is around, and I felt so good about having done something good, and then just to see all this kind of hate, and like you said, the media kind of almost, I don't know, it's lasciviously kind of. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I was. Can I
reveal something? Right, having worked in a couple of news-based rooms, not proper newsrooms, but in news-based rooms, there is among some journalists, not all of them, right? Not all of them, but among some, there is. And I'm not talking about today's event. I don't want to talk about today's event. But when there is. Well, the fact that we can call a tragedy, and I'm not talking about today, right? A big story, that says it all. There are some people that do, some journalists that get excited. Now, that's not a criticism, because I can kind of understand it, because it is their job is to get big stories and present them to the world. So when they are given a big story, it makes their job easier. So I can kind of understand it, but it always sat a little uncomfortably with me. And
I just felt it was a bit kind of like almost like media schadenfreude.
But saying that, when I've been all over the place today in town, and I've listened to Talk Radio, I've listened to Radio 4, and I've listened to LBC. I kind of flicked through all of them because I knew that I was coming in to do this show, and I wanted to hear as many different voices and just see what each station was doing. And it has to be said that the on PM, and I heard a lot of Sam Delaney, and I heard Ian Dale on LBC. It was what I heard from those people was all done very, very respectfully, very tastefully, very, very matter of fact. Neither Sam nor Ian or Eddie Mayer on PM, none of those people were in any way sounding salacious or trying to build it up into. They were just. They were reporting the facts. They were reporting the facts, and I thought all three of them actually were a credit to the industry because they were calm, they were measured, and they were giving us the facts. I mean, I thought Sam played an absolute blinder today when he was doing his show, but so I was pleased that listening to 4 and us and LBC, and I was literally 2 minutes on one, 2 minutes just flicking around as I was driving in, and I think they all presented the story in inverted commas in the best way possible.
Yeah, I just, I think because it went from kind of a personal thing of just like I'm there with the daughter, and then thinking, do you know what, I've done something good, and then this happens, and it's like, when it was I know it's very simplified and whatever, but when it was like 2012 when it was the Olympics, it seemed like there was kind of a national camaraderie and everybody pulled together, and it seems that then something like this happens, and I don't know, it just... It does the opposite.
I know. It is very, very sad because people have died and people.
I know. I'm not doing anything about it, and it's.
But try and focus on the nice thing you did this morning for that woman. You helped out a stranger. That for me is what it's all about. You helped out a stranger.
Yeah.
Julie, thank you very much. 0344 499 1000. Hassan, Colin, stay there. Come to you after this.
Unmissable late night radio with the original king of unconventional conversation.
Make contact with Iain.
Late night Iain Lee on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
We're not going for hate. We're not going to go for finger pointing. We're not going to go tub thumping. We're not going to beat our chests and hit the desk and get all angry because I've got no idea who this bloke was, why he did it. Listen tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. You'll get loads of that. You'll get enough of that. But why would you want to contribute to that? Why would you want to contribute to the hate? Why would you want to contribute to the fear? Well, if you listen in 12 hours' time, you'll be able to find out who would want to do that and why they want to do that. I mean, it really is. It really is. The differences between the morning show and the nighttime show is just completely different worlds. Amazes me. Hassan. Oh, no, we had this problem yesterday. Let's try again. Hassan? Right, let me try on this line, because there's... Hassan, are you there? No?
Ian?
No, oh, hang on, Hassan, say something.
Ian?
Yes?
Hello, Ian.
Oh, you're there. Okay, yes, boss.
I'm here, you're right.
Good. What you got for us, Hassan?
Well, Ian, it's difficult. I don't want to turn your show into LBC or any other radio show, but I do want to touch...
You couldn't do that. We don't employ foul-mouthed racists. Oh.
No, okay. Sorry, that was an insult. Low blow. Take that back. But, I do want to touch on a little bit on today what's happened, because, as you know, I'm totally blind. And I travel on the tube every day for my work.
You tell us you're totally blind, Hassan, but I'm suspicious.
I'm just a benefit thief.
I'm suspicious.
No. I work. And today I ran a coffee morning for blind and partially sighted elderly people this morning, gave them benefit advice. Life just felt really good for once. I suffer from depression.
Yeah.
It was just a bit like Julie, everything felt like it was going my way. I was helping people. Thought I'd get home and plod on my laptop, organise a few trips for the blind and partially sighted elderly people. And one of them was going to be a trip to the Parliament.
Yeah.
And I've taken them before. And getting back, having heard what I did here, I was obviously devastated, but, media likes to now and again hype things up, and I wanted to get the full details, but things were a bit sketchy. And then I did the ultimate mistake. I went onto Twitter, and I went through the trending topics, and I cried because I couldn't believe the hatred that was being dished out towards. I know this bloke hasn't been recognised, or his religion, sect, etc., but everything was that he's a Muslim.
Well, this is yes. A lot of people have jumped on the Muslim bandwagon. It may be, it may be not. We just don't know. You know, a lot of people were naming him. They got that wrong. But the thing is, I didn't see much of that, and I'll tell you why, Hassan. Because I don't follow arseholes. I don't follow arseholes, and because of that, I don't see all of that stuff. I saw one guy, the guy that funds UKIP, right? I don't know his name. I'm just not going to say it, right? I saw one because someone I follow retweeted it, and he'd said something, about 6 million illegal immigrants, and it's just, extrapolating and drawing his own conclusions. And I kind of got involved, and I retweeted it and said, "Stay classy."
I saw that,
and then I fell down the rabbit hole. You saw it?
Yeah, well, no, I read it.
Okay. No, I want to catch this guy out. And then I fell down the rabbit hole a bit, because I then clicked on his feed, and then I clicked on other feed, and I fell down the rabbit hole, and I saw a bit of the hatred, and I thought, no. I don't need this. And I backed away from it. And because I only follow nice people, for a lot of it, my friend Scott, who I follow on Twitter, he had obviously not seen what was going on. So for a lot of the time, I was on Twitter and I was reading tweets about this horrendous incident and tweets from Scott about how to get rid of wood chip wallpaper. And it wasn't him being disrespectful. It wasn't him being flippant. He'd missed the story. And he was genuinely concerned about how do you get... You can't get wood chip wallpaper off, Scott. You're screwed. And it was so human and it was so lovely to see. We got a Twitter expert. We recorded a chat with a guy called Mark Shaw. He's a social media expert, and we kind of put a lot of this to him. We'll play it a bit later on. He's a really interesting guy, actually. And we kind of talked about that. And I'm making a real effort not to click on people I don't like, because I don't want to read that. I'm blocked by a presenter at this radio station, and actually, I just went and looked at her Twitter feed. Oops, and I'm glad I'm blocked. Because I don't want that in my life.
I was going to say, because you have thousands of followers, you must see a lot of rubbish.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like some guy now. I see some of it, but here's the thing. I've been really impressed that neither Talk Radio nor the BBC, or again, I heard a bit of Ian Dale's show on LBC, and it was just because I was flicking through the three kind of main news providers, just getting the tone, trying to get some facts, because I knew I was doing this show. And from a couple of callers on James's show was the first time I'd heard the M word. The M word. I hadn't heard the M word until there was a caller right near the end of James Wales' show. And I thought that was refreshing, actually, Hassan, because, the M or the I word, I hadn't heard it pop up before then. And I thought that's actually really refreshing. There are podcasters and there are people doing programmes in their nana's bedroom and all that. They're loving it. Brilliant. Hate. But even Hassan, even though, right, even if this gentleman was a Muslim, most of my listeners will know that it's, let me speak about other acts, not this one. Most of my listeners know that when other acts have been committed in the name of Islam, they know that it ain't proper Islam, that it is a twisted version of it. But you're right, there's a lot of hate out there, man, and stuff like this. And
that's why I didn't want to come on. I didn't want to come on and say, I condemn this attack, because we all should.
I hate that. When we were with the BBC, if there was an attack, I think was I there when Lee Rigby was murdered? And I think we had to have like a cleric come on and say, on behalf of the Muslim community, why are you saying you don't, hey, listen, brother, you don't need to say that. And then you get the racists phoning up going, I've not heard anyone from the Muslim community. All I've heard is people from the Muslim... It's like all Muslims have got every other Muslim's telephone number. Hey, Mohammed, have you seen... Can you give it... They've all got... They're all... It's like me saying on... it's like when Joe Cox was murdered. It's like me coming on and going, on behalf of the indigenous white population, I would just like to apologise for the brute... It's
You sound like an idiot if you did that. You sound like an idiot.
It's meaningless. And don't, Hassan, don't, when those people order you to bark, don't bark. You don't need to. You don't need to. Only idiots want to hear a spokesman for the Muslim community condemning these acts. Only idiots and racists want to hear that.
No, I love you, and I just stood up with Glory, and I'm not even using a cane.
With Glory?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, Hassan, I think we'll move on, and if that's the case. Colin, you've got a minute.
Ian, how are you?
I'm very well, Colin.
I'm a bit numb after that today.
How are you feeling? How's your head doing? This is kind of what I want to ask people. How are you doing after today?
Well, I'm numb. I'm feeling a bit sick from what I've seen.
Yeah.
I've listened to you through the week, through the last 7 days, and I want to get to this thing. You know, you was asking me about the vibes you was getting last week.
Yeah.
And you was like feeling this and that and whatever.
Oh, I don't want to draw a connection between me feeling vibes last week and this. I don't think there's any connection between that, Colin. I don't want to stray into the mystical tonight. I think that would be I think that would be a little bit tasteless.
All right. Well, I was wondering whether it might be, and I just I just needed to.
No.
Because you may have felt something coming.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Colin, thank you for the call. I don't think so. And I don't want to stray into the mystical today. I want to deal with the facts. And I want to deal with your feelings. I want to hear your feelings. We have got some, I think we've got some really good, unique guests coming up. We said we've got a social media expert. We've got an interview with, Laura Harding, which we pre-recorded. She was kind of locked into Whitehall all day, and we were speaking to her just as she was being released. And we've got Professor Sir Carey Cooper. We've got some really good guests. If you want to stick around, you'd be welcome. If you don't, you don't have to. Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
Talk Radio.
This is Iain Lee. We're doing a slightly different show. I'll tell you what's happening after the news.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
Take a far-out trip into the twilight zone of late-night radio with Iain Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
Unmissable late-night radio with the original king of unconventional conversation.
Make contact with Iain Lee.
Late Night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
I said I'd share my story. We're going to be talking about this all day because it's, rightly or wrongly, that's what the bosses have asked me to do. And here's I got a phone call from my boss saying, Iain, you don't need to come in today. And I went, whoa, why is that? He said, well, because we're going to do a rolling news show. And I said, well, hang on a second, I can do a rolling news show. And boss said, would you want to? And I said, let me have 10 minutes. Let me have 10 minutes to think about it. And I phoned Kath up, and I went, we can do this, can't we? She went, yeah, of course we can do it. And I phoned boss up. I said, no, boss, actually, no, I think it's important I come in. I think it's important that I come in. And so the boss has let me come in and has entrusted me to do this kind of show. And, while I think that everyone's ready for a bit of fun and a bit of a laugh, I'm going to respect him because he's my boss, you know, and here's the thing, guys. Sometimes other people know better than me. Imagine. So we're going to do the show, but looking at today's events, but we're going to do it in a way that I think you will agree is kind of uniquely me and is uniquely the show that me and Kath and Ed put together. I said I'd share my story of today. It isn't really much of a story, but I'll tell you my experience of today. I was in London today, which I'm not always in London in the day. Now we've moved out of London. Very rarely, in fact, am I actually in the centre of town during the day. And I was meeting Will Storr. Remember Will Storr, who wrote The Heretics and Will Storr versus the Paranormal Unexplained? Anyway, he's got a new book out called Selfie. And so I met him for lunch at 1. And he very kindly gave me a new copy of his book, and he was all very self-deprecating, going, I don't know if it's any good. And we had a really nice lunch. We had a really good chat. Really lovely, lovely man. Very genuine man. And we didn't have our phones with us because we'd left our coats hung up thing. So we didn't have our phones. Didn't know what was going on. So I came out of where we were, and I misremember this actually. I talk about this a little bit with the interview with Professor Kerry Cooper, and I misremembered it actually. I said my wife told me about it. It wasn't. I tell you, I'll read you the email that told me, because I came out and it was quite a nice sunny day. It had been raining, and there was where was this? Let me just read. Here we go. Got an email from Dredge. Right, and Dredge is a caller to the show. I'd say we've kind of become friends, and we're talking about a few ideas we've got together. And he quite often he doesn't write an email, but he'll put what he wants. He'll put like a short sentence as the subject, and it said, "Oh blimey, ... you were saying ... #Parliament," and I thought, hang on, what does that mean? That's weird. And so I went onto Twitter and I looked at the news thing. It used to be called Moments. I don't think it's called Moments now. And I saw what had happened. And I texted Catherine because I knew that she'd be coming into London. I said, have you seen this? And then I texted my wife and I said, then my wife texted me, actually. That was it. She texted me saying, have you seen what's happened? And I said, yeah. And I said to my wife, I said, should I go there? I was in Oxford Street. Now, for those of you who don't know London that well, Oxford Street, Oxford Circus, it's about 4 or 5 stops to get in that region. Where we are now, we're in South London, and we're about 1.2 miles away from it. It's a 25-minute walk to the bridge. I know, because I looked on Google Maps. But in Oxford Circus, I said, should I go there? And I started walking to the Tube. And my wife said, no. I said to Catherine, should I go there? They went, no, don't be stupid, don't go there. And I got on the Tube, it's the Bakerloo line, and I had to go north to go to Edgware Road to get my car, and I had to go south. South would have taken me close to that area. I can't remember what station it was. Embankment, maybe? And I got on the Tube, and I headed south. I headed south towards the incident. What time was the incident? About 2:45, something like that. This was just before 3 o'clock. So 15 minutes, let's say, after the event. And I got on the Tube. And because you can get, I've just discovered you can get Wi-Fi on the Underground now. You get free Wi-Fi. And so I was checking the thing, and I was looking at the woman next to me, and she was sending a WhatsApp to a friend, and I was reading her WhatsApp messages, and a friend of hers saying, I've just heard what's happened in Westminster. Are you okay? And she was replying, yeah, I am okay. It's happened right next to where we normally have a meeting, but today we weren't having a meeting, so we're just coming home now. And and I got to Embankment Tube, and I got out. If it was Embankment, I can't remember what it was on the Bakerloo line. And I got out of the train, and I thought, what the flipping hell am I doing here? This is stupid, dangerous. And I'm going to get in the way. What am I going to do? I'm just going to get in. If I can get anywhere close to it, I'm just going to get in the way. And I do not know why I head in that direction. It wasn't, I want to go and see what's happening. It wasn't that. It wasn't, and we talk about this with Kerry Cooper. He's a professor of organisational psychology. Brilliant bloke. And he said, why did you do that? And I don't know. I felt compelled to go. To help? Maybe. I think maybe something in the part of my head said, go and help. Logically, and I got to Embankment, and I kind of came out of my thing, went, well, this is stupid. You know, just go back to near where your car is, go and have a coffee, and you know. And so I did that. And that's my story. It's not particularly exciting, but that was my kind of how I found out about it, and it was weird being on the Tube, and I was looking at everyone, and I was looking at everyone of all different colours. I'll be honest, I was looking at brown people more. If I'm completely honest, I was looking at brown people more. And I was going to say I'm ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed because that is instinctual. That is not instinctual. That is something deep within me. A prejudice, maybe a prejudice. I don't know. But I was looking at brown people with bags more. I'm just putting that out there because I'm trying not. I don't feel guilty about that, actually. I don't feel guilty about that. And I bet loads of you have had that as well and felt a little bit ashamed of it. Don't feel guilty about it. That is something, that is not logic. That is not, that is something deep. That is something in the back of your brain that is uncontrollable. Okay. That's not you. You are not that. But here's an interesting thing. It turns out, and apparently it was on Sam's show, and I didn't hear it, but one of our regular callers was near the event. And it's Gatford. Gatford.
Hello, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you now. Are you back in hospital? Did you come out of hospital?
Yeah, I was in hospital twice this year already, and I was in hospital this time, unfortunately, having my big toe amputated.
Oh, my goodness. Hang on. Why?
Unfortunately, all the various bits of times where I've been in hospital, they've been dealing with me fighting infection in my foot.
Yeah.
And all the various times. It's been going on for 6 months. And it's been ongoing, and they've done everything they could. But at the end of the day, the decision was made that in order to do everything the right way, that they amputated my toe on Monday.
I'm sorry to hear that. How are you feeling?
Surprisingly good.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course, yeah.
Have you got it pickled in a jar?
No.
Okay.
I was hoping to let you give it away as a prize, but they wouldn't let me.
But you're feeling all right?
I feel fine, basically because I'm not in any pain, because I've got something called neuropathy, so I don't feel things in my feet, which is
I
how I ended
know.
up here in the first place. So I'm not in any pain.
And that
so
will
I'm
stop
fine.
the infection spreading, will it? Have they stopped the infection?
Yeah, basically
Beautiful.
they've taken out the infection by taking the bone around the toe.
Beautiful. Well, then
all things will be good from now on.
Can you? Have you been able to stand up? And is your balance the same minus a toe?
Surprisingly, it is. I've walked to and from. I'm in a little family room that they've got here in the ward, so as not to disturb the other patients who I'm in a room with. I can walk, and my balance is fine at the moment.
Good for you. Now, what is that? Is it St Thomas's Hospital?
Yeah, St Thomas's Hospital. I'm on the 9th floor.
Where my nephew Dylan was born in there. Yeah,
Dylan.
Yeah, I know the hospital well. So your window looks out onto where all this happened, does it?
Yeah. So basically, I predominantly can see the Houses of Parliament. You can see half of Westminster Bridge.
Okay.
The other half is sort of hidden round the corner.
Yeah.
So the news guy was saying, when the driver went north, he was heading away from me.
Yeah, and towards Big Ben. Okay, yeah.
And I unfortunately didn't see that incident. I think fortunately.
I think you're lucky not to witness that.
And I first got an alert on my phone. I think I was looking at Twitter at the time, and I put the news on, and there was that very weird moment where what was on the television was happening outside my windows. And the most bizarre thing was once the helicopters started coming in, I could almost go, okay, that's that car I can see there that they're showing on the helicopter. Oh, that's that police officer that I could see there.
Gosh.
And it became very, very bizarre. I've suffered in the past with anxiety, and I've kind of linked a lot of that anxiety back to the riots that happened in 2011.
Yeah.
I think because I was in the middle of Gatford when that happened, and there was a lot of stuff going on
Gatford was in
there.
a terrible state, wasn't it?
Yeah, and literally I walked past a big branch of a famous sports store that was ransacked as part of it. And on my walking to work the next morning, there were like boxes of empty shoe boxes where people had stolen all the shoes.
You got anxiety because you didn't get a free pair of trainers from JJB Sports. Is that what that is?
They didn't have my size. I was terrified.
Gosh, no, that must have been terrifying. That must have been absolutely. Were the riots in 2011, 6 years ago?
Yeah, because it was the year before the Olympics, wasn't it?
It was.
Because everybody was going off about the fact that we can't have the Olympics because of the riots.
Yeah.
And but I think what made me the most anxious around them was I came home and I had BBC News on the telly, I had Sky News on the laptop, I think I even had ITV News on the phone or something. And I sat there and I obsessed on it for 6 or 7 hours, I think like most people did.
Yeah.
And I found myself getting that way again this evening because it was so close. Now, I have to say, the staff here at St Thomas's were incredible. Not only were they calm, one particular healthcare assistant just sat with me for a bit. He could tell that I was getting a bit anxious, so he just sat with me and he just chatted. And we chatted a little bit about what was going on, but then we also chatted a little bit about his home country of Portugal and where his girlfriend was going out and or anything. And obviously he couldn't sit there all the time because obviously he's got a job to do. But any time he got a chance, he came back and said, "How you doing? What's going on?" And, you know, sort of knew that I was locked into this thing a bit.
And what were you watching? What were you watching? The telly, your phone, or watching out of the window more?
I think I was watching the television more because obviously they were providing the solid information. Looking out the window was the worst thing for me because I was imagining it probably, and I know it's terrible, I was probably imagining 50 times worse than what I actually was going on.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I focused on the television a bit. At that point, though, it was very confusing because I think even when I spoke to Sam earlier, we still thought possibly it was two different things and that it had happened the wrong way round.
Isn't that interesting? Because as I heard the story, I heard the story as there had been two cars. A car had driven along the bridge, knocking people down, and another car had driven trying to get into the entrance of the Houses of Parliament. That's how I'd heard it. So I was surprised when I finally heard that it was just one car.
And the way we were hearing it in the hospital, again, there was quite a kind of rumour mill through the hospital as well, you know, people hearing different things from colleagues, that we thought it was someone had got into the Houses of Parliament and separately someone was driving their car.
Yeah, that's what I'd heard.
And we were kind of very confused and, you know, we obviously all got sort of straightened out later. But yeah, and we had relatives who were visiting people who were concerned about getting home and concerned about loved ones, that might have been working.
There's an A&E, isn't there, at St Thomas's? Because we drive past. I drive past it on the way home from work, and you often see ambulances. So I would imagine that some of the poor souls that were physically affected by the attack would have come in there.
When they were saying there was about 20 people in, they were being told that about 3/4 of them were here. And that some had been airlifted. We saw the air ambulance land. Yeah. That was kind of one of the first. I mean, obviously, it's what's the weirdest thing now is I can't look out there now, but when I go back to my room, Westminster Bridge is empty.
Yeah.
And
there were bits of London. There were bits of London this afternoon that were not empty, but I mean, I was driving trying to get here. And some of the roads that were nowhere near as busy as they would normally be at 5 o'clock. Then, of course, you come over to the other side of town where the bridges are open, and it was a little bit chocker. Gatford, you're right. I'm imagining this has unsettled you. Partly, it's unsettled the country, but also because you were literally just down the road from it.
I think this hasn't been a red letter week for me. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But I think again, I reconnected with a gentleman this week. 2 weeks ago, I came to Guy's Hospital for an appointment, and someone that I knew that was sort of in the same ward and area as me was shivering and shaking, and I could see that he was suffering.
Yeah.
So I convinced him to go up to his appointment early, rather than sitting in the canteen and waiting for his appointment. And I got him up there, and we got him up there, and he collapsed when he was there, and he was taken into A&E. And I saw him yesterday, and unfortunately, he's worse off than me. And that gave me great perspective. And I think today has given me perspective that when I heard about, and they're now saying 5 people, and it's likely to rise, it gave me that perspective that I think I was lacking on Monday and now have in abundance.
Gatford, you're a good soul. Go and have a good night's rest, and we'll speak again soon, mate.
Take care. Thank
you very much indeed. Listen, we're going to have a break, because I'm late for the breaks. Then when we come back, we're going to play out a little 5-minute thing that I recorded with someone. I'll introduce it and tell you who it is, and then Tracy, and then Matt, and We've got another couple of things that we've recorded and more of your calls if you want. We're not doing a hateful show. We're not doing a finger-pointy show. We're not going to do an angry show. Plenty of time for that tomorrow from other people. I just want to know how you're doing. Is that all right? 0344 499 1000. Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
Late Night, Iain Lee on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
OK, so, people in radio, they like to get experts on, and they like to get, how do you become an expert? And I loved it when I introduced our first guest. If you missed it at the top of the hour, absolutely fascinating bloke called Simon Trundle. And I introduced him as a counter-terrorism expert. And he said, well, I've worked in it for 30 years, but I wouldn't call myself an expert. I thought, boom, absolute boom, not an inappropriate word, but I thought, perfect. People in radio like experts. And Kath has played absolutely brilliant today. With other members of the team, it has to be said, who've stuck around and come in later, to get people on the show that aren't the usual suspects, that aren't towing. Quite often when there is an incident, and I'm not losing sight of the fact that today something horrible happened in London. Horrible. And who knows who's listening? Maybe some of the families that have been affected one way or another, directly or indirectly, might be. I don't know, and I have nothing but sympathy and imagine that. You go to work one day and someone doesn't make it back, your husband doesn't make whatever. Awful. Attacking kids. There were kids. That was the thing that got me when it was French school kids. Oh, God, kids. Tough guy, Jeep, Land Rover, driving at kids. That's what we're up against. Incredible. But you'll quite often hear the same name. You'll hear and see someone on BBC, then you'll see them on Sky, and then you might see these people. These people that. So Catherine and other members of the Talk Radio team have worked really hard to come up with some people that you might not have heard before. Some people that might have a slightly different take on things. Some people that might we can talk about something that's kind of loosely connected but isn't about the specific event. And we've got a couple of really interesting people coming up later on, I promise you. But we did record a chat, and this was recorded at 5 to 8. With a woman called Laura Harding, who is a correspondent at the Press Association. Now, she was in Whitehall when the attack took place and was therefore locked in. When they had the lockdown, she was part of the lockdown. So she works at Press Association, who are kind of a news outlet. And she was in that building and it was locked down. And we spoke to her at 5 to 8, just as she was being told, just as she wasn't even told, just as people were starting to leave the building. So we've got her just as she was leaving the building. And, well, I thought she was really interesting. So this is me speaking just before 8 o'clock to Laura Harding, who's a correspondent at Press Association. Laura, where exactly are you and where were you when the incident happened today?
I'm currently being evacuated from the Houses of Parliament. We've been held there for about 6 hours, so I'm finally getting out. I was actually inside a committee hearing when it all happened and got kind of caught up in the evacuation when they started moving everyone into the central lobby.
So how did you find out about it? Did you hear about it, or what happened?
Well, I was actually sitting upstairs outside a committee hearing room when my colleague messaged me to ask if I was okay. And it actually been completely under the radar. We had no idea anything had even happened until people started asking us about our whereabouts. There were no sirens or alarms or anything like that. And it was only when people started checking up if we were all right that we heard anything was even amiss.
And then, how, was there kind of a murmur amongst people going, have you seen this? Have you seen what's happening? How did someone come in and say, guys, we need to move you? How do those things work in there?
Well, we went downstairs to investigate, and there were just hordes of people being ushered along the corridors. Obviously, everything's very ornate and stately, so you're used to people kind of moving kind of quietly and slowly and being very kind of serious and murmuring, and this was just absolute rabbles of people being kind of shifted through into the central lobby. It was a very big kind of grand room with a very high ceiling, and it was absolutely rammed with people mainly on their phones trying to find out what's going on.
Now, I should say that we are recording this at 5 minutes to 8, and people will be listening to this a little bit later on in the evening. So you have been in the same place for the entire time, then?
I was in the central lobby for probably about 3 hours, and then they moved us into Westminster Hall, which is the very, very big, grand kind of stone building when you first come in to the House of Parliament. It's where Winston Churchill was laid in state. It's this massive room, and we joined another group of people who'd been held somewhere else, and there was Jeremy Hunt in there, a lot of kind of politicians in there, lots of journalists who have offices in the House of Commons there as well.
How many would you say were there?
Probably about 500, but it could have been more.
And what was the mood like? I mean, were people scared? Were people? What was going on?
Lots of Dunkirk spirit, to be honest. A lovely security guard gave me a sandwich. People were sharing phone chargers, biscuits. Everyone was kind of sitting on the floor, just, cracking on with it. Obviously, lots of people on their laptops, on their phones, still trying to carry on with their work. Yeah. But in general, I mean, a bit of grumbling, obviously, because we were there for a very long time. Yeah. But in general, kind of quite a lot of camaraderie.
And were you given any information? Were there police in there with you that were letting you know what was going on?
Only really in terms of how long we might be there. You could be here for an hour and a half, you could be here for another hour, it could be another 10 minutes. It was always much longer, obviously, than we first thought. Yeah. And but in terms of what was going on outside, just that they told us it was a security incident. So obviously we were getting all the information from outside sources. And
did they tell you why they'd kept you in there for so long? What they were looking for?
The concern was mainly that there were witnesses in among us. I actually chatted to a couple of boys who were eyewitnesses to what happened outside and then were ushered back inside to the lobby where we were being held. Yeah. So what they were keen to do was to make sure that anyone like that who had witnessed the attack didn't slip through the net and they could get everyone's evidence from them.
When you say boys, how old were they?
I'm only saying boys because I'm terribly old. They're in their 20s.
Oh, well done. Yes, I would have said young girls as well if they'd been in their 20s. Or I'm terribly old as well. And so it's now just coming up to 8. You've been in there all afternoon. Who came in and told you could go home now?
Well, they said about an hour and a half ago, you'll be here for at least another hour, an hour and a half. And then just suddenly people started shifting, not towards the exit, but towards the door that goes back into the central lobby. And then kind of without really any announcement at all, suddenly everyone started kind of shunting through. And then we went down into the basement and kind of spat out through the exits down there.
Yeah. And how do you think, from your unique, there were 500 other people there, but fairly unique position and perspective, how do you think it's all been handled?
I would say as well as you possibly can do in that situation. I mean, you've got a lot of people moving very quickly, a lot of moving parts. I think probably the only thing you can do is try and keep them contained as long as possible just to make sure that everyone's safe and also that crucial pieces of information aren't lost as everyone scatters to the wind. I think in this instance, things are moving so quickly and you don't know how many people are involved that you just have to lock things down until you have a better picture.
And are you going straight home, or are you off for a quick drink?
I think I might have to get... It all happened through lunchtime, so I might have to get some lunch and a glass of wine, to be honest.
Well, I think you deserve it, and it's nice to hear people laughing after what's been a horrendous day. Laura, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and a safe journey home.
No, sure, thanks so much.
Thanks, Laura. I do like it how people of a certain... when she said I spoke to some young boys, and she said, they were in their 20s. She was absolutely lovely. And I enjoyed that chat, actually. I did enjoy it because it was really interesting to get a unique perspective of someone involved there. That was Laura Harding, who's a correspondent at Press Association. We've got more guests, and we've got your phone calls, and I can see Tracy and Matt are queued up, and we'll come to them straight after this. But this is how we're doing the show tonight. We're going to... It's a big story, and, the powers that be think that we should continue talking about it, and that's what we will do, but we're going to do it in a unique way. I don't want to create hate. I don't want to point fingers. people have got one less place at the table to set this evening in some homes, and I think that's just the saddest thing. And children, visitors to this country, children, have been seriously injured, and we don't know anything about the bloke that did it. We don't know his name. We don't know his religion. We don't know anything. All right? So now is not the time to create more anger. Now is the time to kind of huddle around the fire and swap stories. That's what we need to do. So I don't want your what do you think happened. I don't want your who do you think did it. I don't want your should we arm police. I don't want any of that, because that... we won't achieve anything with that. We're limited with what we can achieve anyway. I just want to know how you're doing. That's it. How you doing after today? It's been a lousy day. You all right? 0344 499 1000. Tracy and Matt will come to you after this.
Late night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Everybody as well that was tuning in, because we did say we were going to have Joe McGrath, and it is a McGrath, I know, because his son left an answer phone message. Joe McGrath, who worked with Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan and directed one of my favourite films, The Magic Christian. He obviously we bumped him, and actually he was in town today and he just wanted to get home. Completely understandable. He's 88 next Tuesday. He will come in. I'm going to speak to his son Dan, probably on Friday, and hopefully we can sort something out for next week. So that will happen. You haven't missed Joe McGrath. Tracy's on the line. Evening, Tracy.
Evening, Ian.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, feeling lazy after today, but
Tell me why. Why are you feeling lousy?
Well, me like Gatford and loads of others suffer slight anxiety.
Yeah.
I met a friend on Facebook through a cat website, through a cat Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I plucked up the courage last year to come down to London and meet up with her.
Yeah.
Brilliant day, fantastic weather. I say subconsciously, but as we was going around London, I thought, that happened there. Things that have happened. Like we went past Russell Square, I thought, oh, that name rings a bell.
Yeah.
We went on London Eye, we went to London Dungeon, had an absolutely fantastic day. I'm due to go again this year for a day in meeting. Now I'm just worrying about whether to go or not.
Nah.
I know, I think...
Nah, I mean, listen...
They're in the same place, because we wanted to go to the Sea Life Centre, which is right by where everything's happened today.
Yeah.
It's tired my memories of... I'll be thinking, well, that happened here.
Well, I do understand what you mean. And listen, I'm not going to tell you what to do, because that is not my position, and everyone should make their own decisions. But, oh, by the way, you've just reminded me, people were stuck in the pods of the London Eye for the whole event, for hours. And listen, I've been in the pods in the London Eye. They are
fantastic.
They are incredible, and it's not, if you've not been in there, it's not as bad, for example, as being stuck on a broken roller coaster. It's not, it's a very safe, secure pod. But I would not want to be stuck in there for 3 or 4 hours.
No, well, I surprised myself going on the London Eye.
Yeah.
I don't like heights.
Oh, it's a great old trip. It's a great old trip. In fact, me and Kath are doing it next week on Monday if it's open. We're going to go on the London Eye. I've got to book tickets and stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm going to drive home through London tonight. And my wife is going to work in London tomorrow, and I'm going to drive into London tomorrow. And on Saturday, I've not talked about this with my wife. I assume she's fine with it. I'm sure she will be. On Saturday, I'm bringing my children into London to see a play. Not to see a play. I'm taking them. Get this, Tracy. A friend of mine, Mel, sorted me out some tickets, right? I'm taking the boys to see what they called the Yamatamo Japanese Drummers. And it's on in the afternoon. It's a matinee, and it's a show where it's loads of Japanese blokes just pounding the life out of some drums, and that's going to be in a theatre. That's going to be fantastic. And I'll check with my wife, and I suspect that she will be fine with it, and we will come into London on Saturday, and we'll do that. My thinking is, I was talking to this about with Andy Goldstein. My thinking is, don't hold me to this, but straight after what is being called a terror attack is probably the safest time to be in not only London, in any major town or city in this country, because The security, the people working in the shadows, the good guys working in the shadows, will be monitoring everything. The police will be, and I've gone beyond. I don't get uncomfortable when I see coppers walking through the streets with they get those big machine guns. Doesn't make me uncomfortable anymore. It used to. But now I just think, right, fair play. No, they know what they're doing. I feel safe having those guys there.
Yeah. But I had such a fantastic day last year when I went. I mean, it really took me all my courage to travel on the train from Birmingham down to London on my own with my anxiety. And I thought, I've done it, And going around London, it's a beautiful city. I wish Oh,
it's one of the best. It's one of the best. Here's what I will suggest, Tracy. Don't let it retrospectively ruin a wonderful day that you had last year, because the two events, what happened today and your trip to London last year, they are a lifetime apart. It's like people who said, Rolf Harris
and it on the news as well.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You think to yourself, well, I've walked over that bridge. Yeah. I've been past Big Ben.
I've driven
on the embankment.
I've driven over that bridge 1,000 times. I've walked over it slightly less. I've walked along that stretch of road with my children a couple of times. The last 2 times we came to see the London Marathon. I bring my boys into town to watch it, and we walked along there. And another
thing, what upset me as well was all them children being led out of the Houses of Parliament.
Because they were locked in there. I didn't see them, but they were locked in there. They were singing. They were singing when they were in there.
But it makes you wonder, how will they remember? Oh, we went to London for the day.
Well, here's the thing. And interestingly enough, again, we've got a psychologist coming on, right? He's brilliant. He's not only a professor, he's a sir, right? And we recorded it earlier, and we talked about that, about kids that were infected, kids that were affected and involved. We'll play the bit with Kerry Cooper in a minute, actually, after the next break, because he's good if the timings work. We talk about that, and we talk about the kids, and the parents and the teachers have got a bit of work to do there. A bit of work to do there to make those kids feel safe.
I mean, the parents have been sat at home watching it on the news. My kids have gone there today.
I'm sure. And the parents and the teachers they've got to do some excellent teaching and some excellent parenting now. But I'm sure those kids will get the love and attention, and I'm sure they'll be monitored as well by the school. And if they need any extra help, they'll get it. I'm sure they'll get it.
Yeah, but
because that's what we do.
It's nice to hear things from a different perspective, if you know what I mean.
I do. Tracy, listen, I'm going to move on. Matt, I'm going to come to you in a bit, but we're going to take a break, and then I do want to get in this Kerry Cooper thing. Have we got time to do it let's go to the break.
Late night, Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Let me quickly speak to Matt. Matt, we've got a couple of minutes, and then we're going to play the interview that I did earlier on with a psychologist. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm not too bad. Maybe this call isn't wanted because not wanting to point fingers and stuff. But just thinking about what you said about certain people trying to point fingers and create division and stuff. I've noticed. And I think really for the first time today, and again, this is me being a bit slow on the uptake, is a lot of people from a certain side of the political divide, like to use the words snowflake and libtard and all this sort of thing. But what I've noticed particularly today is how utterly terrified these people are. How utterly terrified they are of these imagined enemies that they perceive to be coming out of the woodwork. And they're the ones that cast these words around, that create these words like fake news when they've named somebody today who may or may not be.
Well, in fairness, it was Channel 4, I think, were one of the first news organisations to wrongly name the person.
A lot of people on Twitter had latched onto that name before that, because he was brown and had a beard.
Well, I saw that Channel 4 had announced it, and I believed it. I Googled the fella.
Yeah, we'll do, because that's what the news does. But that's how these fake news stories get out. Is that they have a patina of verifiability.
Channel 4 should have done better. Channel 4 really missed the mark on that.
Well, look, I mean, it may still turn out to be that they were right, but...
Well, no, the fellow they named is in prison, so they were wrong, you know.
So he definitely confirmed as still being in prison.
I believe so, you know.
Yeah.
I believe so.
I mean, he's going to be very rich now, isn't he? You know, and he is...
I don't know. No, he's not.
Well...
No, he's not.
Well, maybe, but he's still going to get a lot of publicity that he didn't otherwise need or deserve.
I don't know what your point is.
My point is that you know, when something like today happens, is that there's an automatic gut reaction from people on all sides of the political spectrum to just jump in and point fingers and create division, and, you know, saw people like Tommy Robinson turning up outside the Houses of Parliament and flinging his weight around. I don't understand why that has to be the case.
And I don't, and I just, I'm deliberately trying to avoid naming names as well. But Matt, I appreciate your call, but I just don't think for tonight, for this show, that's kind of where I want to go. Someone suggested we get Tommy Robinson on the show. I said that ain't never going to happen. Going to happen. Okay, so say Catherine and various other members of the team. But this was Catherine's brilliant idea, was to get a gentleman that we used to speak to a lot when we worked at the BBC. A bloke called Professor Sir. He's a Sir. Carey Cooper. He's the Professor of Organisational Psychology and Health at MBS, Manchester University. He would have come on live, but he was getting a flight to Brussels, I believe, and. Really, really interesting guy. Got his head screwed on. Certainly isn't one to jump up and down. And I kind of, I started off by sharing with him the story that I shared with you about how I reacted and how I found myself on a tube heading towards where the incident had taken place, and we scratched our heads a bit to see if we could come up with something. This is what we talked about. Carey, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, Ian.
Thank
can you believe tonight?
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on short
problem,
notice.
Mate. Absolutely.
I just wanted to kind of pick your brains a little bit, Carey, about some of the things that I felt happening to me and how it might affect other people. First things first, I was in town today. I'm rarely in town these days, but I was in Oxford Street. Mm-hmm. Not that far from where it happened, but far enough.
Yep.
And my initial reaction when I heard about it was I had to get on the tube, and I had to get on the tube to go north to go and get my car. And instead of going north, I got on the tube and I went south towards where the incident had happened. Now, I knew I couldn't do anything. I knew that I wouldn't be allowed near it, but I felt this compulsion, Carey, to head towards it. And I wondered if that was... I wondered if there was an explanation for that.
You wanted to be there, did you? You wanted somehow to be near there.
Yes, I did, and I don't know why.
It was sort of like, in a strange sort of way, emotionally communing with all the incident and what happened to people. And yeah, I can understand that. I mean, it's unusual because I think the natural response... So my wife just went down to London. She just called me up. I said, "Do you hear what's happened?" Because she was on the train. She says, "No, tell me." And I told her. So she went in a taxi rather than going in a tube because she was frightened of being in a tube because she thought anything could happen in the tube.
Yeah.
But your reaction is an interesting one. But I think it's about... It's wanting to be there, the emotionally wanting to be there, but at the same time, it's kind of making a statement.
Yeah,
I'm not going to let this change me.
There was an element of that. Once I got to the station, I didn't come out of the station. I got off the train and went, hang on a minute, this is crazy. I'm gonna head back.
It's crazy because it's not rational, is it? But we're not talking about rationality in circumstances like this, are we? Why do you think you did? What's your explanation for your behavior?
That's a good question. I do not know. I felt that I somehow wanted to contribute to the situation, and I can't be any more specific than that.
But psychologically, you felt you wanted to contribute.
Yeah.
Now, I can understand that. I think a lot of us do that. When there is something that happens, it drives you emotionally, and you want to do something, even if you can't do something. And maybe just being there, you feel is doing something. And in a way, it is doing something. If a lot of, like tomorrow, if a lot of people turn up around the House of Commons and don't avoid it, in a way, it is doing something.
It's interesting you mentioned your wife, reluctant to go on the tube. And again, I get that. I was on the tube and I did feel, I felt very nervous. I remember, after the attacks in 7/7,
yeah,
I didn't go on the tube for about 10 days. And the first time I did, I was nervous. And today, I was nervous and I was looking around. I don't know what I was looking for, but I was looking around and my senses were heightened. That must be very common. And I wondered kind of how long after an incident like this that effect continues.
I think it will continue for a while, but not long.
Mm.
We have very short memories, don't we?
Yeah.
Only when another incident occurs. You know, it's been a long time since we've had the last incident.
Mm.
And only when it occurs again, I mean, it depends how repetitive it is. I mean, if we get more of these over a period of time, then that will institutionalize it in a sense in your psyche.
Mm.
But it won't last that long. But I remember at 9/11, I was in a meeting at the top of Centerpoint, would you believe?
Wow.
The day after, or the day or 2 days after. And you know what? Nobody concentrated in the meeting. Everybody was, at the airplane.
They were looking out the window,
London.
yeah.
Everybody. We just decided to cancel the meeting. Because there was no point. Nobody could concentrate.
But there is something in the human psyche or the mind or whatever it is that we get past that eventually. We have to get past that eventually, don't we?
You have to do that. In life, you have to get past. That's a coping strategy, isn't it? I mean, otherwise, how do you live? But by the way, there are some people who never get over it. There'll be people who say, I'm never taking a tube after what happened in King's Cross, right?
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to ever take a tube again. And they'll always go on, on buses or cabs or whatever. And, but to survive, I think, if you're going to adapt and cope, you can't just avoid things in life. You have to confront them, and that is life. Life is vulnerable.
Tonight on the show, Kerry, we're not going to... I don't want any people, kind of guessing as to what happened and guessing who it was. I want to deal with the facts. I want to deal with human stories. So some of what we're going to talk about will be a little bit abstract. But people who have witnessed a traumatic event like this... and who have seen something horrific happening... What can they do? What kind of help is there for these people?
You want to hear something interesting?
Yeah.
Because when they're, you know about post-traumatic stress, right? That it comes back later, something triggers it, and so on. And they used to think that the best thing to do is give people counseling immediately, right?
Yeah.
It's almost a prophylactic, as it were.
Right.
So that it won't happen, that it will protect you if you get counseling before you actually experience the heavy and negative emotion later on. And then a lot of research has indicated that actually you shouldn't be doing that.
Oh.
That what you should do is give it to them when they need it, because when they need it may be 2-3 weeks, a month later. And that it's not effective to just do a blanket counseling unless at that moment in time they're not coping.
Yeah.
So, for example, did you notice there was 100 and some odd kids came out of Parliament, right?
Yeah.
Now, there'll be a number of kids who will be frightened by that, particularly when you're talking 7-8-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
So what you really should be doing is offering counseling, but not doing a blanket counseling of everybody.
Right, okay.
So those people who can't cope get the counseling, who are having real trouble putting it together, particularly perhaps young kids. But making sure that, and this is for the relatives, making sure that if you see anything unusual in your partner, relative, or whatever, friend, over the period of weeks or months after, make sure that they then go get counseling when the post-traumatic stress reappears. And it can, and it does.
And what impact can that have on someone? We know that there were several French children that were very seriously injured, and their friends would have seen that. What kind of impact? What can the symptoms be? How can they react when it kicks in?
Do you mean the people who've witnessed?
The people who have seen it happen.
It'll make them feel insecure. No question about it. And those kids are going to need help download. It may be now, it may be in a few weeks, but the parents or the teachers or whoever were watching after the kids better be conscious of their behavior over the next given weeks or months. It will affect them. I mean, come on, human beings crave to some extent stability and security. And when something like this happens out of the blue, it disrupts your whole concept of safety.
Is there... I've got 2 boys who are 7 and 5, and I will do my very, very best to make them blissfully unaware that this event has happened, as I think they are too young. But, supposing they're, a kid comes in and watches, mum and dad are watching the TV and they see this, or they'll probably see it on the front page of the newspapers tomorrow.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not going to, hide that bad things happen in the world, but is there a good way of
dealing with them.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not an educational psychologist.
No.
For me, what I would do is I wouldn't try to avoid it, because guess what? They're going to talk. They're going to hear about it.
Yeah.
They may not watch it on television. They may not see the newspapers. Maybe they're too young. But maybe friends of theirs will talk about it at school. Right? I mean, I think I think kids have to be exposed to it, but that you talk about it. You know what I mean? That you let them ask questions.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Jackie? What do you just seen that. What do you think? What are you thinking about? What are you feeling? And let them talk about it, because you can't protect them all their lives. And it's better if you try to cover it up. Given the multimedia age we live in now, there's no way kids are not going to be exposed to things. I mean, if they're under 5, it's a different matter.
Yeah, but yes.
But most kids are pretty savvy with social media and everything else. And it's better that somehow they just unwrap it and get it out rather than bury it. Burying your emotions is not healthy. It's not healthy for kids. It's not healthy for adults.
And finally, Kerry, how does this... When there are events like this, there seems to be a real kind of coming together of the country. Do you know what I mean? Everyone seems to kind of join together in, I don't know, in indignation or anger or you won't be, whatever. I wondered why that was, how that happens.
Well, we're all feeling, in a way, we're all feeling slightly insecure, aren't we? As a result of that. This is going to last for weeks. This kind of insecurity, oh no, we're back there again, are we? And I think people are just, comforting each other. That's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. Look what happened during the Second World War. Look how wonderful the country, Britain, came together during the Second World War. And, that is the beauty. I mean, that, in a way, that's the indirect benefit of these horrible events, is that people do come together. And you know what? You realize, in a sense, don't you? You contextualize. You realize life is a one-act play. We're all very vulnerable. Yeah. And in a sense, we need one another. And, when you're living your daily life and you're going into your studio and back again, and I'm going into the university and back again, you forget about that. You think you're going to live forever. You think everything is going to carry on exactly the same way it did yesterday. And it doesn't. From time to time, life rears its ugly head.
Kerry, I appreciate your time. Have safe travels this evening, and hopefully we'll speak again on a slightly happier subject next time.
I hope so.
Thank you, mate. Take care.
Thanks. Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Talk Radio.
He's good, Kerry Cooper, isn't he? Really, really interesting guy. We'll get him on again at some point and do something a little bit frivolous with him. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. We've got Alex, we've got Barry Westwood. Maybe you can call in and just let me know how you're doing.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
He has made a covenant with the night, and with the darkness he is in agreement.
Uncut, after-hours conversation for the up-all-night generation. Late Night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Evening, dear listener. Different show tonight. I'm not going to patronise you by filling in the blank. You know what's happened today. It's been an awful, awful day. Worse for some people and slightly better for other people. But we are doing a show where we are talking about the events of today. And again, I'm not totally sure if that's necessarily the right way to go. But actually, actually, I was going to say pretty much everything that can be said has been said so far with the information that we have presented to us. But actually, we have had some cracking guests tonight. And you, dear listener, you have called in, have shared some very human stories. And, we're going to spend the last hour. I've got another guest that we spoke to talk about kind of social media and Twitter's reaction to this event and events like it. But again, just in case you have just tuned in and you're expecting the crazy knockabout phone-in show, we're not doing that tonight. But also, equally, we're not doing an angry show. We're not doing a tub-thumping, chest-thumping, table-thumping, finger-pointing show. We're not. I am doing my utmost to not spread fear and anger. And those are the two things that fuel a lot of radio in this country because it gets listeners. People like to be scared and people like to be angry and they like to be told who to be afraid of and who to be angry at. And I could do that. I could do that act. Oh, I could do it easily. I'd struggle to sleep at night afterwards. I'd struggle to look my kids in the eye when they say, Daddy, what do you do? I'd struggle with that. I wouldn't be able to look my kids in the eye, having called, people who are drowning in the ocean cockroaches and things like that. I couldn't do that. And I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night by, writing tweets that suppose who this chap was and how we should all hate people of a certain faith. I couldn't sleep well at night, but I could do it. Oh, I could do it. I can make a fortune doing it. But I choose not to. I'm trying to create something that is, it's been a stressful day, hasn't it? It's been a very stressful day. And, so let's all just try and calm down a little bit. And, if you were there, I'd love to hear from you. If you weren't there, I'd love to hear from you. How you doing? How's your head? Struggling to get to sleep because of tonight, or has it not bothered you that much? That's also a fair, legitimate reaction. I talked about how I got on the tube earlier on today, and I was slightly wary of people with dark skin. I was thinking, but I was looking up and down the carriage, and if there was someone with dark skin that had a rucksack, thoughts were going off in my head. Isn't that funny? Isn't that silly? It's the fear. And it's not rational. It's not rational. Of course it's not rational. But I'm saying that because I'm sure lots of you will have felt the same thing. And you're not, doesn't mean you're racist. Not racist. You're not anti-Muslim. You're not anti-foreigner necessarily. Sometimes we can't control our initial thoughts. The first thought, the knee-jerk reaction, can't control it. It's the thought you have after it. It's the second and the third and the fourth thoughts. They're the ones that you've got to pay a bit more attention to. 0344 499 1000. Alex. Evening, Alex.
Evening, Ian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, actually. I'm feeling a lot calmer than I was earlier on. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm nice and chilled now and relaxed, and it's all nice.
Good. What have you called in for?
Well, I just wanted to say, because I'm one of, on John Holmes' show, The Big Debate, I'm one of the big debaters.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, then I have heard your work, Alex.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Hang on a minute. Are you trying to tell me that The Big Debate on John Holmes' show, he uses stooges?
I'm not saying a word.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm one of the rare people that actually is a character quite often. But yeah. But anyway, the reason I'm calling is because we're a close-knit group and we do listen into each other's big debates.
Yeah.
I wasn't on today. Yeah. I was on yesterday. But I was listening in and ready for it. And then, the news dropped.
Yeah.
And then a message came out to say, we're dropping everything.
Mm.
And everyone was like, okay, understandable, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And I just want to say how incredibly impressed I was with John Holmes and Cass, the producer, and Cornelius. How they dealt with it was amazing.
Tell me, and don't be ashamed of heaping praise on him. I missed it because I was out and about. I was out in town when he was on, but I read some really good things about Twitter, and I've mentioned that Sam played a blinder, and I also mentioned a couple of other radio stations. But go on, why was John so good? I knew he would be because he's brilliant, but why was he so good?
It was just honest, reporting. Victoria was in every 15 minutes, giving an update. They had calls from like experts straight in. It was just really impressive, and because obviously their show is very tight, and they know what they're going to do, and the fact that they were just able to just switch just like that and just have this whole thing and dealt with it so brilliantly, it was great.
There is a reason that John Holmes is the most listened to show on this station, and it's partly because he's funny and he's doing something that no one else is doing, but it's also because he's very intelligent, he's very sharp, and he is a brilliant radio presenter. And I'm really pleased, Alex, that you phoned in to acknowledge that, because there will be loads of the thing about today is loads of people from all different kinds of shows have helped. We've had people help out on our show that we don't normally have helping, and I know that loads of people jumped in for John's show and for Sam's show and for James's show, and so everybody has been kind of pulling their weight. But John Holmes is brilliant. That's why he's the most listened to show on this station by quite some considerable way, and he does it, Alex, without being hateful and obnoxious. Imagine that.
That's it. I know. It's a gift, isn't it? It really is.
It is. I hate him. I hate him for that.
He's a lovely guy. You can't hate him.
No, I do. I hate him. He's a sod. I never liked him. No,
he's
I
short.
He's very short. He fit me in your pocket. Alex, I'm glad you did that, mate. Thank you very much.
No worries, Ian.
I appreciate that. Yes, no, I didn't hear John's show, but I did read quite a few tweets and Facebook comments and stuff saying he did an excellent show. Isn't it funny? People are surprised when people who do funny shows can then go and do straight shows. Barry Westwood.
Hello, Ian. Yes, can I just say, in the last 2 hours, I certainly commend everyone, yourself, and your guests, and the callers, and I think it's been dealt with very well indeed. Just to agree with what Alex said, I was listening today to Talk Radio when the news broke, and it was pretty obvious that it was something serious. We'd had a bit of a shower here, and then it was suddenly beautiful. I was in the garden, I was working away. And the thing, that I deduce from this is just how quickly this horrific sort of event can change a day. So quickly.
Yeah.
And, I mean, events like this have to be dealt with, Ian, and I think what you're saying is totally right. It's not a time for finger pointing. It's not a time for assumptions. The authorities need to do their investigations, and no doubt it will all unfold.
Let the police do what and again, it's got to be said, I think the police were just, on the ball today, and it's now let's just sit back, let's stop doing the guesswork, let's stop, let's let them find the facts. Let them find the facts.
Yeah, I mean, there were some interesting points that the professor made as well, that with a regular occurrence of events, you can become institutionalized to it. A little bit probably has happened in the days when we were getting the problems with Ireland. But because it's been happening in other countries, but, fortunately for us up until now, we've not experienced it. And so consequently, the shock factor does hit you, and that's understandable.
Yeah. You'll sleep all right tonight, won't you, Barry Westwood?
I shall try my very best, but obviously, our thoughts do go out to all the people that have been involved. It must have been an horrific day for people, not just people who were on the receiving end of it, but people who had to witness this. And, again, we're all cynical sometimes about political things and all the rest, but when we do see the emergency services at work, it does, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it does make you feel proud to be British, doesn't it?
Barry Westwood, thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. Got no more calls lined up. Two mics might pop in if they've got a few minutes before their show at 1 o'clock. They might pop in and just kind of gauge their reaction and let us know about what. I mean, obviously they'll be talking about this, but just give us an idea of kind of what their slant is and maybe the impact that it's had on them. I've had a couple of American friends, because one of the good things about the internet, we're going to speak in a bit. I'm going to play an interview I did with Mark Shaw in a little bit, who is a social media expert, and we kind of talked about Twitter. And how people react on Twitter to something like this. But one of the joys of the internet, and there are a lot of bad points, but one of the very good things about it is I've got friends all over the world. Friends all over the world. Primarily friends who are into the monkeys, which is weird, and primarily women in their 50s and 60s who are into the monkeys. It's the weirdest thing. And I went to America a few years ago to go and see the group, and I was welcomed by all these, these women that I'd never met before. And there was one woman, I tell you this, lovely lady called Kim. And I was going over to New York to see, I think, one show. And then I realised I could get there in time for another show, but I didn't have a ticket. And I posted, I'm going to be in New York near this venue, about 2 hours away from this venue. Don't suppose anyone's got a spare ticket. And she got back in touch. We messaged, she posted on a page I run. And she got back in touch and said, well, my husband's got a ticket for that show, but he doesn't like the group. And he's quite happy for you to have his ticket. And I thought, that's a bit weird. That feels a bit weird. But I did. And I met this woman outside this theatre. And we went and saw the show. And she was absolutely delightful. We had a lovely evening. At the end of the evening, I gave her a hug and a kiss on the cheek, thanked her very much, and I got and it was brilliant because there was nothing, there was no vibe or anything. It was just someone, a friend online, and gave me a ticket and we went and saw a show. And I've had a couple of these people that I'm friends with send me messages because when these stories like this are reported around the world, terror attack in London. There's been a terror attack in London. And, to people outside of London, or people who don't know London, or people who live in foreign countries, when you see the headline, terror attack in London, they instantly think that everyone that's in London must have heard the gunshots, must have seen the... people forget that London is massive, It can take you 2 hours to travel from one side to the other side on a bad day, so... I had a few people get in touch and say, are you all right? Are you near it? Are you near this? And I replied, yeah, no, I'm absolutely fine. And then it dawned on me when I got in, and I did the Google thing. How far away from Westminster Bridge are we now? We're 1.2 miles. That's a 25-minute walk. That's a 15-minute jog. It's 8 minutes in the car. I'm going to try and drive down that way to get home tonight. I don't know if I'll be able to. I imagine I'll have to take an alternative route through London. So it's kind of just down the road from where we are. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. If you want to give us a call, you don't have to. If not, we might, there's a couple of other little bits and pieces in the paper that I think, we'll play this interview with this Twitter guy in a minute. We'll see if the two mics want to come in, but I know they'll be prepping their show. And if none of you want to call in and let me know how today has impacted on you, then maybe we will gingerly, we will tentatively have a look at some of the other stories that are in the papers, that have been in the papers today. They'll all seem frivolous and ridiculous compared to what's happened. And I've not got tomorrow's newspapers, but I just popped next door and I saw of course, all the front pages are covering this. And I'm going to do my best to try and not let my boys see the front pages because they're as grim as you can imagine. So if you don't think it's too disrespectful, too, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, but maybe we'll have a look at some of the other stories that are in today's newspapers, Wednesday's newspapers. I get confused with this midnight thing as to what day it is. 0344 499 1000, Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
Late Night Iain Lee. Unfiltered night talk with the original king of unconventional conversation on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Trust me. Tomorrow, radio is going to be very, very angry, okay? And you will be told who to hate, who is at fault, who let you down, who dropped the ball, all of these things. You will be told, okay? I'm kind of hoping that tomorrow night we can do one of our normal shows. That's what I'm kind of hoping. But we leave it up to the bosses, you know. It was when the boss said he wanted this show, you know, he's the boss. It wasn't oh no, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, I disagree, boss, but you're the boss. You know, it's what we do. We do what our bosses tell us, and I'm happy that he let me come in and do this. You know, instead of not trusting me and getting someone else in. But hopefully tomorrow we can go back to doing a normal show, and obviously updating you if there is any, if any news happens tomorrow evening. But I've just lost my train of thought. Okay, I'll introduce the guest because I had a train of thought and I've completely forgotten what it was. One of the things that people like is experts. We want experts on the show. As a listener, I'm not so convinced. But, say, Catherine and various other members of other radio, the other shows here on Talk Radio, they kind of sat down. I had no say in it at all. And came up with people that I think are really interesting and not the usual voices and not the usual names, won't be telling you the usual thing that you'll hear all over LBC and Sky and the BBC, and you'll see these names and you'll hear them trot out their little lines. Catherine kind of decided to try and come up with the list of people who would come from slightly different angle. And I think you'll agree, she's done absolutely brilliantly. So well done, Catherine. Thank you. The last one we've got, there's another pre-record because here's the thing, I could hear phone calls being made. Yeah, hi, we're from Talk Radio, and I just wondered if you'd like to come on the Iain Lee show tonight. Yeah, sure, what time? Well, it starts at 10. I'm going to be in bed. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Everyone was going, I'm going to be in bed. I would come on, but I don't fancy it that late at night. Who in their right mind would come on the radio between 10 and 1 every weeknight, or any weeknight? So this is why we're playing recorded bits and pieces. Actually, Kerry Cooper would have done it, but he was going to be travelling. And so this next guy is a guy called Mark Shaw, social media guru, expert, Twitter, you know. And we were interested to find out how the pluses and the minuses of Twitter in a situation like today. And I'm listening back to these interviews. I hate listening back to myself, but you'll hear me stammering quite a bit. And that is because it was literally, Kath would phone someone up and say, and that person would say, and we have a little crib sheet as to who the person was, and we just go and do it. We don't write the interview. We didn't sit down and come up with questions. She would kind of give me a theme, and then we'd sit and talk to someone 5, 10, 15 minutes, however long it lasted. And you'll hear me stammering, and it's because I'm kind of formulating the questions in my mind and trying to find the right words. And sometimes when I'm working like that, I get in little cul-de-sacs, and I can't get out. I can't reverse the car out of the cul-de-sac. So you'll hear a bit of stammering. And I wasn't sure how it would go with this guy, with this Mark Shaw. Well, wasn't sure. And we recorded it thinking, well, if it doesn't work, if it's a bit dull, we won't play it out. But actually, I think he was really interesting, and he had some really pertinent points to make. So this is an interview we recorded, again, it was about 7:45, I think, earlier on this evening, with social media expert Mark Shaw. Mark, it's good to talk to you. I was wondering, on days like today and events like, the ones that have happened in London today, is Twitter a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, here's the thing. I think the first thing to say is that when anything breaks, everyone goes to Twitter.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you never heard anyone saying, let's check out Snapchat to see what's breaking in the world. You know what?
You're so spot on, because I got a text saying, are you anywhere near Westminster, from my wife? And I thought, something's happened. And I went to Twitter. I went to the Moments, or whatever they call it, on Twitter these days. It's my first port of call. Isn't that interesting?
Well, exactly. I mean, Twitter has grown up on that. The Hudson plane crash got them on the radar, the breaking news platform, and that's where everybody goes now. So in that sense, and that's where I started suddenly seeing it, people started reporting what was going on. But then you get two odd things. You get the one where people are saying to people what's sort of going on, and then you get the people who are filming or tweeting injured people rather than helping or doing stuff. And I think maybe that is where it's gone a bit wrong.
You're right. I saw a tweet, and I forget who it was from, saying, if you're nearby, don't film stuff and post it on Twitter. It doesn't make you a journalist. And I don't follow many people on there, but, even still, I saw pictures that, I thought were inappropriate. Pictures of severely injured people. And I was thinking, that bloke's mum or wife or daughter or son doesn't know that they're injured yet. There should be some kind of time. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's confusing, isn't it, Mark? But you know what I mean? Pictures that I thought were inappropriate were appearing online.
Well, exactly, and I saw those as well. And I then start to see the people saying, please don't pass on photos, please don't do that sort of stuff. But I suppose the problem is that we are all journalists now.
Yeah.
And this stuff didn't happen 10 years. We didn't have smartphones. We didn't have cameras, video. You got people live streaming on Facebook and Twitter and so on. We didn't, and to a certain extent, they were all there before the news stations and the general media got there.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of glad in a way, in a nice way, condolences to everyone who's been hurt. I want to say that. But, I'm glad that they're there to report what's going on. But we're not trained as journalists. We're not trained in the media. And you're filming people who are being maimed, being injured, and their loved ones don't know. So, but I don't know how you control that.
And also, I'm speaking very vaguely about this incident but in incidences where there are people there and they film stuff and post pictures, there's always a strong chance it's going to go to a criminal case as well. And by posting pictures, by posting videos, that can impinge on court cases, can't it?
Well, it can impinge on that. Also, there's a lot of misinformation.
Yeah.
And you tend to get people retweeting and sharing things that's wrong, that's the wrong information and so on. So I think sometimes, people just need to go, how can I help as the first thing? What's the best thing I can do? Ring the police, help people who need a hand or whatever.
Yeah.
Next thing, get out of the area so the emergency services can get to where they need to get to, make sure they're safe. And then I suppose if you want to film, then film stuff from the police or film official type things to share correct information.
I tell you what was interesting, and I only saw one, but I'm sure there were others, and you do see lots of these. I remember the Paris attacks, lots of these messages. It was one, again, I don't remember who it was from, saying, if you are nearby, if you are near the where this incident took place, and you're looking for somewhere safe, we are, it was a shop or something, a theatre or something, and they said, our doors are open, come and be safe with other people. And that is one of the good things of Twitter, isn't it? That it can create a sense of community.
Well, exactly. I suppose, and that's, you've got the good side and the bad side. And the good side is you start to get people opening their doors.
Yeah.
You get people who are warning of others of something so they can make appropriate measures and so on. Facebook do their emergency response on their website so everyone can say that they're safe. And you start to get an outswelling of people helping and so on. I suppose it's just like any community, you then get the idiots who do the complete opposite.
Yeah, and also as well, because I've got a very weird relationship with Twitter. It does, again, incidences like this, where we don't know what happened. We don't know what was going on. But it allows the very loud and the obnoxious to put forward their views and their opinions on what may have happened as fact. And when it's an incident like this, we get a lot of racists and we get a lot of extreme right-wing capitalising on the images and using Twitter to spread that message.
Well, and I think that happens probably with any terrorist attack. But here's the thing about social media. You can't control the message. You've got people who will spread whatever they wish to spread through it, as long as they obey the laws of the land and so on. Everyone's going to have a view of what's happened here, what happened in France, what's happened in various other parts of the world. And they spring and they use it as a platform. You also get brands and businesses who try to hijack what's happened and suddenly start to promote their goods and services. So there's all sorts of people doing wrong things, crazy things, but then there's also great people who have managed to find people because of social media with pictures. and so on. So
you're right, Mark, and I don't want this to be one of those, I don't like those shows, the dangers of the internet. The internet is generally a brilliant, amazing thing, and there are corners and there are people, like in all walks of life, that cast shadows, aren't there?
Well, exactly, and I'd like to think, maybe I'm middle-aged now, but I'd like to think there's more good on social media than bad. There's more people that have had good experiences and so on than the bad, but it's always the bad that makes the headlines, that makes the stories.
That is an excellent line to end on. Mark Shaw, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, mate.
Late night conversation worth losing sleep over.
Iain Lee.
On air and off the leash.
On Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Evening, dear listener. This is Iain Lee. There's another half an hour of this to go, and we have been talking about the events that happened in London today. At 1 o'clock, it's the two Mikes, Mike Graham and Mike Parry, and they've joined me in my studio, which is weird. I feel strange having.
Last time we did this, we were round the other way.
Yeah.
Weren't we?
Having two titans of radio.
It's very harsh, that.
Sorry, did you say two tight ones?
Something like that. Yeah, it's very harsh.
Two tight ones.
Yeah.
Listen, you're going to be talking about this.
Well, do you know what? The thing is, we're a few hours after the terrorist incident, and the world has already returned to normal.
Yeah.
You have to accept now, in the modern world, that the terrorist attacks are factored in.
Yeah.
I was just saying a few minutes ago, the stock market did not shift one blip on a terrorist attack. Now, 25 years ago, when the IRA blew up something on the mainland, the stock market collapsed.
Yeah.
Because the shock and the horror and the fear that society was falling to pieces would reverberate around the business world.
Yeah. And interestingly, the contrast between Martin McGuinness's situation and, which we talked about a little bit yesterday, and now, McGuinness, for all of the things that were terrible that he did and all of the things that were said about him by Norman Tebbit and others, he had a plan. They did eventually become electable. Sinn Féin did eventually get what they wanted.
There was an end game.
There was an end game.
With
these sort of bozos who grow up somewhere in a council estate in Britain, having come here as second-generation immigrants.
Well, no, hang on a minute, because you don't.
I know that you've said that, but that's how it's going to turn out. Trust me.
Okay.
In Fleet Street, you have to have an instinct. This is not going to be some guy like the bloke who blew up Oklahoma City. It will be, somebody who is in fact probably a second-generation immigrant, who will be probably someone who converted to Islam, probably
back home, so to speak, in the last 2 or 3 years,
who has been visiting some kind of mosque and been radicalised, and that's the pattern. But these are not actually Islamic terrorists. They are misfits. They are people who have got. Well, they might as well not be Islamic. They might as well be Christian. They might as well be.
It's almost like they're trying to get into the club.
It's got nothing to do with Islam. This is what I'm saying. I'm not going to turn it into
exactly
a religious thing. But what it is about is that these are people. I mean, who would want to drive a car along a bridge which is for French school children have been injured in this, right? Who've been visiting. People who are just standing there have been jumping into the river. This guy has then driven and jumped out of a car with 2 knives, knowing pretty well that there are police with guns around him. It's almost like, he knows, it's pathetic.
You may well find this guy's high on substances.
He might be.
This is another trait of it. The one thing I find very odd here.
Go on.
I mean, years ago, I remember standing on the rails of the White House and having my picture taken. That's how close you could get to the White House. And then terrorism came along. So now we have concrete blocks everywhere. I mean, I know that, hindsight's a great thing. But shouldn't there have been little barriers about 4 or 5, 6 inches high along the edge of the pavement?
Well, I was in
Westminster
New York
Bridge
just the other week.
When the car can't mount the pavement.
You can't get a car anywhere near Trump Tower.
Didn't they put concrete blocks
They have got them.
Oh, they've got them outside Parliament, but not over the bridge.
Right,
Yeah, but then are you going to then? I mean, bizarrely,
it's a busy bridge,
and I don't wish to minimise the nature of what's happened. In about a week's time, they're going to start digging up the bridge to put cycle lanes in.
That's right.
And had they done that this week, then he would have been able to do what he did.
No, that's right.
But the more surprising to me is also the fact that he can jump out of the car at, in Westminster Square, Parliament Square, and just run at the police, who are not armed. The police are standing inside the quadrant where MPs are, and they don't have any guns.
I thought they were armed, and he just...
the guy who was killed was not armed.
Is that so? Because I'd heard that he was. Okay, all right.
No, the one who was killed was not armed.
There's on a lot of the front pages, I think all the front pages, it's the pictures of the terrorist. Do you not think there's people saying on Twitter and stuff that it should be a picture of the police officer that died, the people that lost their lives,
Yes.
or the MP that ran to try and save the copper. Should it not be picked? I mean, your paper.
I mean,
this guy's the monster,
I mean, most of the
isn't he?
places most of the papers that I've seen so far have tried to do both. Really,
Have they?
because
Okay,
they've
right.
got
I've only
both.
glimpsed them on the
so
telly.
I suppose they're trying to do the contrast of, the fact that in this country, whether you're a terrorist or a victim, you're still getting help by the emergency services, and in a way, that's quite a good.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're not trying to demonise the terrorist or wipe him from history. They're trying to create what is, I suppose, a horrible scene that an awful lot of people who saw it are still trying to recover from. Because I mean, you've been talking about some interesting after effects of it. It's how it affects people and how it affects the way that you live the rest of your life. London will not change, I don't believe.
No,
one of our newsmen said something really interesting, that he won't walk through Whiteley. Not Whiteley. Is it the one in Shepherd's Bush? Is it Whiteley?
Oh, Westfield.
Westfield.
Yeah.
He won't walk through Westfield
because he can't afford to buy anything.
Partly because of that.
Yeah.
But partly because it's a potential target.
Yeah, but everywhere's a potential
Everywhere
target.
is.
I mean, as Mike said, you get back on the tube the day after a tube explosion for two reasons. Firstly, you say you're not going to stop me. But secondly, more cynically, you think, well, lightning can't strike twice.
Yes.
So, I will walk over Westminster Bridge tomorrow and say I'm the bravest man in Britain. But knowing, actually...
That's probably the safest place in Britain.
Exactly.
I mean, I took
again.
Pan Am 103, when it was still called Pan Am 103, back to New York.
Wow.
2 days after it had been blown up over Lockerbie.
So you're making this about yourself, are you?
Yes, I am.
I heard you two last night. You're having a pop at...
because Mr. Captain, he's Donald Trump who talks sport.
Well, hang on, I got the first flight into Washington, D.C. after 9/11. The first ever flight that went back into America from Heathrow.
Are you sure it was the first one?
Absolutely, the first one was into
Have
Washington,
you got documents
D.C.
to prove this?
Absolutely, and pictures and everything else. Myself and Mr. Brazil were the only two passengers on board the British Airways.
It's unusual for him to make a flight in those circumstances, but he did.
Yeah, the British Airways Jumbo, which flew into Dulles. It was -40 when we got there, by the way. Yeah.
-40?
Yeah, it was, yeah. It was incredible.
What, Fahrenheit?
Yeah, incredible weather.
-40?
Yeah, it was incredible weather.
In September?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm absolutely certain.
I think you may have slipped up
I'm not, because when we got into DC...
There's no way it was -40.
To try and find the radio
It's like
station,
the Ice Age.
There was 2 feet of snow. It wasn't like the Ice Age, I'm telling you.
What was the date?
Make it stop.
Well, it was 2 weeks after 9/11.
So that was September. You're telling me that in Washington, in Virginia, it was -40 degrees Fahrenheit.
It was absolutely that. No, I'm telling you. We'll check it.
Sorry about this.
Make them go away.
I'm sorry. So would you like us to leave now?
I think now would be a good time for you to go.
Okay. This is the thing, you see. You overstay the welcome. You come in, he welcomes us. We'll never be back now.
Well, then you started boasting about how brave you were on
and you couldn't stand it.
Just get out.
And you couldn't stand it.
Please. Just get both of you.
We have to go.
Get out.
Pan Am 103.
Turn their mics off.
Smithereens.
Get out, for crying out loud. It's like, it's like gate crashing an old people's home or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like, flipping heck. Is that LSD I bought in 1996 kicked in and I've fallen into the radio? What the hell is happening? Do apologise. They'll be on at 1 o'clock. Some people don't like listening to them. I don't know why. I love it. As I was saying to them just as they were coming in, I don't know anything about sport. All of my sporting knowledge comes from listening to those two. That's it. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Michael. 0344 499 1000. Late Nights with Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
The radio show for people who know the best part of the day is the night.
Late Night Iain Lee on Talk Radio.
We have ways of making you talk.
Right. 0344 499 1000 is the phone number. Yes, Ian.
Hello, is that me?
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, well, I'm Ian from France. We've spoken before. Funnily enough, the first time that I called you was on the night of the Nice attack, the lorry attack in Nice.
Right.
It was not connected with that. As it happened, as I was calling you, I was totally unaware that was taking place. And so, you know, just today, I don't know. I just felt it was there was an element of synchronicity just to call again. You know, living in France, you know, probably the country in Europe most affected by terrorist attacks
in Europe.
It's in Europe,
yep.
Of course, in Europe. Absolutely correct. Of course, in Europe. Yeah, that was a mistake. Of course, you're quite correct. it is interesting, the response, because people here simply do not see it as kind of a Muslim problem. That the people that I speak to, and maybe they're like me, maybe they're kind of wishy-washy, liberal snowflakes like me. They see it as kind of a mental issue, as kind of a mental sickness. So people are doing these things because they are.
It feels like we're starting, and I know the two mics came in, and someone said the two mics just undid all of the good work you've been doing. No, they didn't. That's their opinion and their comments, and that's fine. And they're older and wiser and fatter than me, and that's fine. But I don't listen. In the last 15 minutes of the show, 10 minutes of the show, we've managed to avoid the guesswork and the Muslims, and we've managed to avoid all that, and I just don't want to go there.
I get you.
I don't want to go there. There's no need to go there. There's no need to go there tonight. You'll get that at 1 o'clock. You'll get that tomorrow. That's fine. That's their shows. That's other people's shows. We don't need to go there tonight. I got someone on Twitter saying, why are you not mentioning radical Islam? And I've replied, because it's not what the show's about. We're not talking about why or who, or we're talking about how it's affected people.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you're right. You're right, Ian. Yeah, you're right. You're right, man. I feel awful.
Why do you feel awful?
I feel awful because I've spent maybe 45 minutes this evening in tears, man.
Why?
Just looking at there was a moment when quite recently, in the last 40 minutes, the Eiffel Tower, they just turned the lights off.
Yes.
And it was just a beautiful, poignant moment, and it made me cry like a baby.
Wow.
This evening, my job in France is to teach French people English, and of course they've been very interested, in my opinion, on what's been going on in London, and without exception, every time we started talking about it, I started to cry.
But why?
And I just couldn't help it.
But why? What was it? What was it you're crying for?
I was crying just because of the futility of the act, irrespective of who's behind it, the rationale, the mentality. Irrespective, it was simply the futility of the act made me weep. And Ian, let me tell you, the joyous thing was 2 out of the 3 students joined me in weeping.
But what were you? But what were you? But you were. I don't understand what you were crying for.
What do you mean?
I don't understand why you were crying.
What was I crying about? People dying for no reason?
No. Hang on. That's the first time you've said that, Ian.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. I don't know why you were crying, and now you're okay. That's the first time you've expressed that so explicitly. You hadn't made that clear before.
Sure. I'm sorry. My apologies. My apologies if I wasn't clear enough. Exactly. It was simply the futility of the deaths, basically.
Right.
You've got people walking across a bridge, or a policeman doing his job, whatever.
Yes.
And now they're dead. And now they're dead.
Yes.
And there's no. I'm trying not to swear. I'm trying not to swear because it's emotive subject. And now they're dead.
Yes, I know. Yes, we've established that. Ian, thank you very much. Dennis.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dennis.
What can I say? I say exactly what you say. We can't start jumping to conclusions. There are lots of good Muslims in the world. They're not all bad. If it is Muslims, there's a lot of good people of different...
Yeah, there's a lot of good Muslims, there's a lot of bad Muslims, there's a lot of good Christians, there's a lot of bad Christians, there's a lot of good atheists, there's a lot of good black people, a lot of bad black people, a lot of good... There's good and bad in everything.
Of course, you can't sort them out from here, so I agree with you totally.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Yes, Paul?
Every Muslim country is at war.
Paul, you phone in 10 minutes. I'm not doing that phone in tonight.
Okay, well, let me say this.
No. We're not. Paul. We're not. Paul. We're not. I'm not doing that phone in. Phone in 10 minutes. Phone in with Julia Hartley-Brewer tomorrow. That's fine.
Okay.
I'm asking people how they're feeling. That's all I'm asking. All I'm asking is how people are feeling.
I was struck by that guy there who said he cried because I try to avoid that sorrow. You know, if you linger on the suffering, it is really distressing. Because innocent people, just kids walking across a bridge, are having their lives taken away. I remember Nice was so horrific, you know. Yes. But it's every month now, and it's like
Paul. I don't know how much clearer I can make it. That's not the phone-in I'm doing. I'm asking how people are feeling, how today has affected them. I'm not doing the phone-in that you think I'm doing.
Well, I'm scared, and I think a lot of other people are scared, mate.
Okay, Paul. Well, that's okay. Dan.
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Dan.
Hello. I was just thinking, and I put it on Twitter, so I'm reusing my own material.
By the way, Ian's just saying, I ran out of credit on Skype. I didn't hang up. No, I cut you off. We'd finished the conversation, Ian. It finished. Yes, Dan, sorry.
No, it's all right. We've had a lot of stuff in the news recently. You've got Trump doing his travel ban.
Yes.
Then we've got all this, let's ban electronics on certain flights.
Yes.
And frankly, doesn't achieve anything, does it? Because ultimately, all these incidents is the work of a lunatic. A dedicated lunatic who's got...
Dan, we're not doing that phone-in. Well, I don't understand why people have... I don't know, but then you're... No, you are, though. I'm not doing that phone-in. I'm not doing the... Let's guess why this person did that. Or... And I don't know if you were building up to a gag or not. I don't know. But we're not... See, the two mics did interrupt the chi. We're not doing that phone-in. And for the most part... I can hear some of you are itching for that phone-in. That's great. Phone the two mics up now. It'll be a cracking listen. You know, if you want to get really angry, listen to Julia Hartley-Brewer tomorrow. She spouts a load of poisonous bile. Listen to that. You know, if that's what you want. I'm not doing that phone-in. I'm trying to be a bit more human, a bit more humane. So don't phone up and tell me every Muslim country's at war and you're... How is that going to help? Yes, line one, you're on the wireless.
Hi, Ian. Yes, this is Ian from France. I'm sorry, we just dropped out.
No, we didn't. We finished the conversation, and I cut you off to go to another caller.
Oh, did you? You dumped me?
No, we finished the conversation. I cut you off to go to another caller.
Oh, it didn't feel like an end of a conversation to me.
Okay, well, I tell you what. You get a radio show. You decide when all of the conversations are finished. You do that.
Why are you being so rude, sir?
Ian, I'm not. The conversation is...
You're being incredibly rude.
No, I'm not, Ian. You're being incredibly demanding, and you are displaying signs of entitlement. The conversation had finished. We were coming towards the end of the show. I had two more callers lined up that I wanted to get to. That's how a phone-in show works, Ian.
Well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I'm really glad you think that's fair enough. There's a brilliant picture in the papers today. Have you seen the picture of the kid in the machine? Oh, it's flipping brilliant. You know the grabbers. There's the grabbers, right? There's the grabbing machines where they've got the teddies. You can never get anything. They're fixed so you can't get it, right? Jamie Bracken Murphy, who is 3, climbed in... It's such a good picture. Climbed inside the claw grab game while his dad's back was turned. Damien, 35, was sitting with Jamie's brother Shane, 5, when he heard muffled complaints and turned around to see Jamie's face looking out from behind the glass. Jamie was stuck for 10 minutes. An off-duty fireman coaxed him out. He's climbed in, look at that! He's climbed into the machine! He's actually in it! He's in it! And of course, Dad, took pictures. It is on today of all days. Go and find this picture. Find this picture. Just type in "kid inside, grab him." It's brilliant, and he's in there, and his dad and his brother are looking in. Go, what? How the flipping hell did you get in there, son? It's the best picture. That's what you need. That's what you need after today. There we go. There we go. We almost made it. We almost made it, guys. I shall be back tonight at 10 o'clock. I suspect that we'll be doing a normal show, but I don't know. Who knows? Let's see what happens. But I suspect that we will, as long as there are no huge developments tomorrow, we'll be doing the same old knockabout crazy late night phone-in show. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Catherine, for playing an absolute blinder this evening. Thank you to nearly all of you who called in. 2 mics up next. Until then, ta-ta.
Talk Radio, the 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse.
Talk Radio. Give it some lip.